I know we have board members coming in, at least some of them, other district folks. But I want to honor and respect your time and save as much time as we can tonight for your questions. Is Gamer Darcy? We don't have a line out front, right? Are we okay out front? Okay, we're good. Okay. Okay, let's jump in. Again, welcome. Thank you for being here. My name is Steve Hogan. I'm the Director of Planning and Boundaries for Granite School District. How's the sound in the very back? Okay, any echo at any point? You can't. The microphone gets too far away. Whatever, let me know. Okay. We're going to try to go through this as quickly as possible. There are a lot of slides. How many people have not seen much of anything? Any slides or a presentation? Anybody? Okay, handful. That's okay. Glad you're here. How many people have attended at least one meeting before? Fantastic. Okay. How many people have emailed or given feedback? Okay. Who was it that left that message on my phone? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't raise your hand even if it was. No, everybody's been great, really. They really have. Seriously, thank you for being here. So, I know that I have board members coming in and some other folks from the district. I believe we have this meeting tonight. We have the same presentation scheduled for tomorrow night at Skyline. So if anyone asks, it's not a different presentation. It's not a presentation for Olympus and for Skyline Networks. It's the same, or at least it's meant to be the same. We have some other meetings coming up. I know we have one specifically in Eastwood. We have something coming up at Drigg and some other schools. We have a little more time here. So I'm not too surprised. Not everyone can come on the same night. But a couple of things. We try to start on time. We're going to do our best to end on time. And when I say end, we officially go till 8. And if you've been to these meetings before, we've had meetings that are supposed to end at 8 and they end up over at 9, 10 or more. I need to be respectful to the custodians of the school and everyone else helping with this. We'll end the official part of the meeting at 8. I can stick around for a few minutes after that to follow up questions. If you don't get all of those tonight, please come back tomorrow. If we need to have other meetings, we will do so. But we are going to try to keep to that time frame. Of course, it's all respectful and model civility for especially children and students. We will have a few here tonight. And even if they're not here, please go home and tell them how engaged and involved and active you have been. And that if there's any disagreement tonight, we've done it right away. Also, please, when the time comes, we'll use these 2 microphones. You've seen this before. I can never tell who's next or who raised their hand next. We'll just have you line up either of these microphones. And I will take turns back and forth. And we'll do it that way. And remember, everything is being recorded tonight. That will be on our website. So just know what you say and everything that's happening is recorded tonight. Okay? And try to do your best to keep it to 2 minutes. A lot of folks want to come up and I get it. You got a list. You got a list of a dozen questions you want to try to get through. Narrow that down. If you need to, get back in line. If you need to, come back. But just to be respectful of everyone here. Now, with this many people, sometimes we have 200 or 300. But this many, maybe we can adjust that. We'll play it by ear. Okay? History. This is the big deal. This is the thing that is happening to everyone across the globe, across the country, in our district. In some districts more than others, in parts of some districts more than others. And it really comes down to birth rates. Birth rates are down. They have been for a while. We're really starting to see the impact of those lower birth rates. Granite District, again, a 20-year snapshot you can see. If you go back a little further than this, Granite has been as high as 70 to 75,000 students. Now we haven't posted it. Oh, there we go. So now we've dropped about 20,000 students in the last 20 years. If you've seen some of the other slides I've had, it looks like we're projected to continue to go down over the next several years in pockets, in areas. So it's not likely, unfortunately, done yet. Is that me doing that, or is that just a connection?
You're good.
Let's try it. There we go. So what does that mean? Why is that important? Isn't it, it's okay that we have fewer students, because that makes school smaller, which makes class sizes smaller, right? Not right. It just doesn't work that way. With fewer students come fewer teachers. There's a student-teacher ratio. So we found, like other districts across the country, that declining student enrollment creates a scarcity of resources and opportunities for students and teachers. You'll hear me use the phrase economy of scale quite a bit, and that's really what it comes down to. Schools can be too large, they can be too small, and there are definitely impacts when that happens. This is the process. It's almost a year long. We started this in February with meetings, large meetings, some small. We've had many committees, subcommittees, groups, our PAC. So now here we are again in September, this meeting tonight, another meeting tomorrow night, more until November. I'll have another slide. November 1st is the first reading for the board. Well, that's like an initial approval, any changes, and then finally December board meeting where there's any final approvals for anything. So this isn't a quick process. In fact, I can tell you from talking to other districts around the country, comparing notes, that ours is one of the longer processes. A lot of districts do these kinds of things start in August and end in December. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. We've chosen as a district to have a longer process to make sure we get enough feedback and hear from everyone. The map. You've seen a version of this map or something similar. Some people have asked, Steve, where's Immigration Canyon on the map? We used this map before. It's, again, what we call Area 5, just a geographic area, and there's 10 elementaries in there. Now, Immigration Canyon is absolutely part of our district, and we love it, and we want to keep it, and I want it to be completely recognized. But just visually, when we put the entire boundary up there, in fact, there's part that where Oak Ridge and Eastwood are that you could also have a color because it goes over the mountain to the county line. But it's just hard visually. So I just want to be very clear. Yes, very aware. This is the map we've been using. You can see, if you can see that spot, we just use that map and remember that yes, Immigration Canyon is part of the Eastwood boundary and therefore included in the study. And we apologize if our Immigration Canyon folks are upset about that. It's just it's easier to see just what that looks like. Make sense? The same area, junior high boundaries. The same area with our high school networks or boundaries. These are the factors, some of the factors that we consider in boundary changes of both. Current and future enrollment. I'm going to talk about that in just a second in more detail. This is pretty critical. School programs and their impacts, and the FCI, contiguous boundaries that are touching. Transportation, walking routes, district resources, fiscal considerations, and so on. Other factors unique. There are always factors unique to every study. So let's jump in first and talk about current and future enrollment. How many have seen this table? Looked at it, seen it? I'm going to talk about it a little more. Maybe I haven't talked about it enough, but it deserves attention. When we look at enrollment, current and future enrollment, the base data that we start with is number of students living in a boundary. When you talk to a demographer, or especially a K-12 demographer, I've talked about day's demographics. is now MGT. Any company that does this type of work professionally, if you look at the report that we got from MGT, they'll tell you in the first couple of pages, what is this based on? It's based on inbound or how many students are inbound. Why? Why do we not look at all the students that are at that school? And we do, but inbound students carry the most weight because it tells us long-term what the likely health of that school is. Let me show you what I mean after I get my clicker. So it's a pretty simple formula: approximate capacity, number of students living in the boundary, and utilization. Pretty simple. It's just, how is that school utilized? How full is it? We really don't want schools 100% full if we can help it. We'd like to leave some flexibility for programs and other things in the school. A good goal is probably 80 to 90%. It depends. It depends on schools and programs. But so keep in mind, you can see what some of those percentages look like. So then you take the number of students living in the boundary and also attending that school. Now, you can see every number drops because all schools, you never have 100% of the students that live in your area attend your school. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are all kinds of reasons a student doesn't attend the school. It could be as simple as, grandma lives over there, and I need you to be dropped off there, or it's on my way to work, or friends go here or there. 18 other reasons. There are lots of reasons, but you can see it goes down, but the question is really how much it goes down. Or in some cases, not from there. But from living in the boundary to about living in there and attending, you can see, of course, what those percentages start to look like. And then we take the actual number. Okay, you can see some of those rebound significantly. Probably the most obvious one there is right inside, where if you look at the inbound student population versus how many are actually attending right now, there's a huge difference. And again, not all bad, but remember, what we know from years and years and decades of evaluating this kind of stuff is programs change. Programs do come and go. They may be there 2 years, 5 years, some 10 years or longer, but you can look back over the history of programs and they do change. So our first piece of data we start looking at is for overall health and enrollment is inbound. If you start with under 200, that's a challenge. If your starting point is 500 or 600, okay, we have some flexibility and some leeway as to what we can do there. But it's fairly simple math. I can come back to this one later. But again, I'm trying to go through these pretty quickly. I know as I start to get specific here with recommendations, you don't want to jump up. Try not to jump up if you can. And do your best. I'm not going to stop anyone, but do your best. But we'll try to hold all these questions for later, but I can come back to these slides as we need to, okay? Proposed eastward closure. Not a lot of changes I don't remember from the original, from a couple of weeks ago board meeting. The school boundaries, in this case, if eastward closes, will combine with the Oak Ridge boundary. Why? The PAC recognizes that Oak Ridge is more centrally located for most students. Again, I'm going to go back to the Integration Canyon thing for a minute. Obviously, that's a game changer, and that's different. But for most students in this contiguous area, that's where most of the students are. Okay, and it's more centrally located for most students there. Closer to Churchill, the junior high, which as we start to do more and more, we're trying to do more of this vertical articulation with students and teachers sharing schools and sharing programs, with the IB coming in, or the PYP, whatever you know it as, the baccalaureate program, that would be more important. Sometimes the DLI that helps. Larger building capacity, pick up and drop off, more of a challenge at Eastwood as enrollment is increased, and then lack of ADA access in the Eastwood cafeteria. People have been asking about busing. What does that look like? This would be busing map, and it simply means that an area that is hatched or striped, as these lines, if you will, would be busing eligible. Remember, the state statute is 1.5 miles away from the school. For a walking route, there's software that tells us what that walking route is. It's not as crow flies, it's not GPS and Google Earth, it's not get in your car and drive it and make it a trip and see how far it takes you. There's professional software they use to determine these. Some people have asked, because a pretty obvious dividing line, if you will, seems to be Mill Creek Canyon. Because there's still technically walking routes right there. Now, I talked to the transportation department, and by the way, there would be a minimum of 2 buses. So the Immigration Canyon bus in this scenario would not stop like it does now. So in other words, Immigration Canyon bus would come directly to Oak Ridge. It does not stop and pick up other students. We don't want to increase that time any more than we have to. So it means instead of coming down for that bus and getting off right there at 33rd, it comes down one more. It's off at 39th and goes up Jupiter, and according to our measurements, it adds 2 to 3 minutes of time to that bus route. So it's a straight route. Then a different bus starts picking up in this area. Now, that certainly does not fill the entire bus. If there's more room on the bus, which is often the case, then we do our best to pick up what are considered courtesy riders. That means, why send a bus to a school half empty? If there's more students on the way, and we can pick them up and do that, then we'll work with transportation to try to make that work. It's not, you don't have as many bus stops. There's usually 1 or 2 on the way. Where those would be, what that would look like, I do not know for sure, but I'd be largely up to transportation. But I'm feeling pretty confident. I can't guarantee, just my experience over the years looking at this and the numbers, that at least the students that are at this side of Mill Creek, north of Mill Creek Canyon, we believe would have room on them for us. A lot of the students that are in the Eastwood boundary, yet to live on this side, there aren't that many. A lot of those already permit to Oak Ridge, but there are a handful. So I don't know what that would look like as far as busing. We would like to arrive at a school with a full bus, especially when it's a 3 to 4 minute ride. And so if you got a bus packed with 3 kids a seat, and that's a 30-minute ride, that's one thing. But if it's a 3-minute ride and they're pretty packed in, that feels differently. Okay? Questions. Some people have had questions about busing and whether it was capable to get a bus up to Oak Ridge or what that looks like. I'll go over this. Let me tell you a couple of things and we can come back to this map. A lot of the emails I receive said, Steve, it's difficult. In fact, I'm not sure we can get a bus up to Oak Ridge on a snow day. This area is like Eastwood, but further up the hill you go, the more snow is going to be. I worked at Churchill for 6 years and very familiar with that snow situation. When I talked to Mill Creek City, they told me that both of these, Jupiter and Oakview, they consider priority 1 snow removal. Now, I can't speak for them, that's only what I've heard. What priority 1 means, how often it's plowed, I don't know. I can tell you that I've seen storms out there that if you had 1 plow dedicated to that 1 or 2 streets, it still would be enough, depending on the storm. We know that. And in the code and in that area, there are sometimes just bad storms, and we adjust. But yes, I'm very aware. Can buses get in and out? Yes, they can. The modification we would make, instead of coming in here, of a vote view and exiting over here, is changing that. So Me and the superintendent met our director of transportation last week. He brought the bus. He drove the bus himself. We had a bus for ourselves, the three of us. Drove it in and out, noticed any issues that we had. And our proposal at this point is the bus comes either Jupiter or Overview. I'll let them determine that. But from this point, they do not come in here. They go up to Broadbank and across. And if they come in this direction, it's a lot easier in and out. The angle of the bus, the little dip there, the bus is not scraping, all of those issues. Also, when the bus comes through, it's letting out on this side. The kiddos don't have to cross. You might have to repaint stripes and stalls, things like that, but that's one of the solutions that we would have for that area. Someone has asked about reloads. One, if those two boundaries or enrollments combine, we don't need reloads. You can look at the history and see that they've had 525 students up there before without relocatable classrooms. If we ever did need them, if there was a program that was big enough for a reason to have reloads, yes, we can get them up the hill. Yes, we can get reloads there, but we don't anticipate that anytime soon. I can come back to that if you want. This comes up a lot. We're not closing schools in order to sell the properties. We haven't, Grand District hasn't sold or surplus the property in a long time. I think it's over 10 years. If there's a board member or superintendent out there, if I get this wrong, please correct me. But perhaps Grand High School was the last one. That's not typically what we want to do with properties. So just a reminder, we're not selling properties to charter or private schools. That makes no sense. That happened before, and not a good idea. Why would we sell or even lease a property to a competition, quite frankly? It doesn't make sense. Correct. We don't want to lease or sell. Either way, it doesn't make sense to us to help charter schools take students away from us. To lease the property, okay. Yeah, we lease the property. We lease our properties. Yeah, we lease a lot of our properties. Let me go through this part and I'll tell you. So again, it's like I said, we've been hesitant to do that. We've not done that in 10 years. Remember, by state law, if we do decide to sell a property, the local municipality legally has the first right of refusal for it. So we can't just close the school and say, hey, highest bidder, this developer wants this. It doesn't work that way. It's a municipality. Most schools are used by either other programs or leased to municipalities or government agencies. We've closed 10 schools in the last 7 or 8 years, and those that are used either by us, just like it says there, they're leases. What that does is it takes them off of our books, really. We don't have to maintain them or do anything else. Whoever leases them, it takes care of all that. Sometimes the buildings remain, sometimes we demolish the building. It depends on the situation. But we want to maintain our own, I should say. We want to continue to own those. So if we do need it again, if things turn around, we have that property, and we can get that property back out of this. Again, if something like we don't have a need or want to lease it, we just want to keep it, then we certainly don't let our property become a nuisance or a hazard or an eyesore. We have to maintain those properties. We have custodians, roving custodians that go around and maintain those in our ground schools. Okay? So to answer your question, yes, we do lease, we do lease to other agencies and groups. A few people asked this question. Well, Steve, I know you say the combined boundaries, but what is the distribution of students? Again, Immigration Canyon is not on this map. I know the distribution of students. But the question specific to me on this map was, this person asked me, thought, hey, I think for some reason there's a clump that's more on the far side. They're up here and in this area. There's not any down there. This is just a map that shows it's pretty evenly distributed around both boundaries. Next, changing gears quickly. I want to try to talk a little faster. Proposed boundary change to Rosecrest changes. We feel like it makes sense to take the non-contiguous portion on one side and reboundary that and move that over to Rosecrest. The Wilson boundary on the left side. That area currently is probably evergreen Olympus boundary, but they're a small split feeder with 15 to 20 students. Makes sense, and also helps Rosecrest to add more students, to have them also come to Rosecrest. Morningside is a feeder to Wasatch. It would remain a feeder to Wasatch as well. It makes Rosecrest a split feeder, technically, it does. And we try to not have split feeders when we can help it, and I'll talk about that again in a second. But we also will notice a big theme here in this study is looking out for our secondary schools, especially as they specifically are junior highs. Although there are no boundary changes there, we tried everything we can really to maintain, because we have a couple that can afford those students. We don't want to have more of the small school issues in junior highs. So therefore, Morningside, if they changed elementary boundaries, they would continue to feed into Wasatch. This is what the busing eligibility looks like in that area. Again, the striped, hatched area is busing eligible. We could probably talk for an hour about busing eligibility and the challenges with walking routes. When we try to do an hour in about a minute. Remember, Granite District doesn't make that. It's a state statute, 1.5 miles away. Anything past that is considered busing eligible. Keep in mind that when I looked this up 2 years ago, it was 10% of the district students were bus eligible, 90% were considered walking, or within 1.5 miles. I haven't redone that, but as I looked at it this morning, I went back and looked. If it's changed a little bit, it's still no more than 80-20. In other words, 80% of our students are walking, considered walking students, and 20% or most would be bus eligible. Now, as more schools close, if they have to do that, and boundaries get bigger, more students are bused. Do we have areas all over our district? If you look at Rosecrest, and you have significant streets, 27th, 20th, and sometimes big, busy residential streets that students still cross. Yes, it's everywhere. I wish it weren't. In a perfect world, I wish it were not. If you look at, I'll come to you in just a second. And just context for a second. The context is big for me. If you look at context, I know this doesn't help you as a parent. Context, again, is, it's everywhere. We have, fortunately, in this study, believe it or not, fewer of the larger streets that students have to cross. Do you have streets without sidewalks? Yes. Streets without streetlights? Yes. And with more snow piled up on the side? Yes. And we also have a lot on our other parts of our district that are crossing 3500 south, 3100 south, 4100 south, 4700 south, 54 and 62, and so on and so on and so on. Bangor, we have Bangor is right in the middle of some of our areas. All a concern. All a concern. I didn't have the complete answer for that. Wish I did. That was out of my wheelhouse and above my head. I'm just trying to want to educate everyone on what the process is like and why it is the way it is. There are plenty of things out there in all of our worlds that are there and we don't like them. But that's the system we have currently. If one day the state says we're going to take care of all busing for all students, I'm first in line to say, hallelujah, please, can we do it? I'm all for it. Knowing that each bus costs about $225,000, gas-powered bus. Electric buses are a lot more expensive than that. Then drivers and maintenance and gas and all that. So it's, the realities of money always, right? So that's maybe more than the money than more. We're trying to give you some big picture info there. AOC, Advanced Learning Centers, gifted. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago at the Morningside to talk about a proposal or recommendation at that point because we have two ALC programs, one at Woodstock and one at Morningside. And the recommendation at that point was to consolidate that down to one location. And the proposed location then was Woodstock. There were some other changes. We could, again, go on for the next hour on just ALC. But here's the recommendation. If somebody wants to talk specific ALC, we'll have to have another meeting and they'll come back. But here's the results so far. The board and district would like to study these programs further, including the potential expanding and enhancing services. I'm sorry to read this, but this is all every word is important. Enhancing the services we provide to our advanced learners. As a result, we have decided to no longer pursue the consolidation of the programs currently housed at Woodstock and Morningside elementary schools. Instead, the district will maintain two separate program locations on the east side, in this area we're talking about, Area 5. East side of the district, with the program at Woodstock remaining in its current location, and a new location for the Morningside program. That location is yet to be determined, and we're making every effort to make that determination as soon as possible. Whether that, I go back to the board in October 7th, whether we can do it then, or it has to go a little later, I'm not sure, but that's something we're just getting back in, just looking at, okay, where will it go? Okay? If you're in ALC, just raise your hand if you're an ALC parent. Okay? You all know what I'm talking about. Okay? And if you're not, you're like, yeah, okay. But you know, and we can revisit this. But that's, in summary, where we're at with ALC. Thank you for your feedback. That's great. Morningside. Lower inbound school utilization. I'm going back to that chart, that rationale we discussed at the beginning. Yes, currently about 565 students approximately total. But looking at those inbound numbers, there's concerns. We have the non-contiguous boundary issue that we've looked at. Lower FCI. It's a little relative. We can debate what lower means, but it's 21 being worse, 100 being best. It's lower. It's lower in the area.
What's FCI?
The FCI, Facility Condition Index, a ranking. Some districts do it the higher the number, the worse. Ours is different. Anyway, the lower the number, the worse the condition. If you're number one, you're the next to be built. There's a lot goes into that, but that's FCI. I think the thing to keep in mind with this study, that especially applies, I think, to both Eastwood and Morningside, is in this study, there's no obvious aha silver. If Oakridge and Eastwood, if one of those schools was almost brand new, everybody would see it and they'd say, it makes sense, right? The one school is older and needs to be rebuilt soon, and the other one's brand new. And we've had those mistakes. When that's not the case, there's no obvious one, and this is the case in this study, I think also with Morningside, it is a combination. Probably more often than not, it's the combination of factors considered together. I don't know if any one thing. It is the combination of these factors that the PAC is considering to make this recommendation. You look at any one of those and you just say, okay, but I don't see it. All Morningside students from this area become boundary to Driggs Elementary, just like it shows in the map there. No junior high boundaries are changed. I've gotten this question a lot. No, those are the ones that we're going to Rosecrest that I showed in the earlier map. And so that's part of Morningside currently, and we're proposing that part of Morningside is go to Rosecrest.
How many students are on that
approximately 40. Okay, so this one, the question I get is, and this is going to make more sense in the next, when we talk about the rest of Driggs here, but can we not send some of these students, this is 45th south of 45th, down to Cottonwood? Okay, keep that in mind. I'm going to come back to that. I haven't forgotten, I'm going to come back to it. But that's Morningside. Now, as all the students come to Morningside, we're doing two things. Trying to make a little more room at Driggs to accommodate that, but also at the same time is trying to balance out other schools and trying to increase their enrollment. By the way, this is Morningside, and it's also, I didn't know how to put it up there, so I just put the entire chart. Again, you look at total enrollment at 565, it looks and feels pretty good. But understand what's happening there is with two programs and trying to run a traditional school. So you have your kindergarten, first grade, you have your two ELI classes, one ALC. We do not have enough students, traditional students at that school. Look at the numbers. They combined in a split class, there are 17 students. Every other grade has one traditional class. Third, fourth, fifth have one traditional class. One higher, one a little lower, one right on average. We love our programs. We want to use those programs. We think students deserve all those programs. But there are challenges with programs if your traditional school base is not high enough. This is what happens. It's almost like running 3 separate schools in a lot of ways. And this kind of goes back to the overall enrollment issue. Okay, back to the part of the Morningside. In this proposal, after this area comes to Driggs, the proposal is to have this area, west of Holiday Boulevard, approximately 70 students, become boundary to Cottonwood Elementary, and this area, approximately 30 students, Murray Holiday to Apple Blossom Road, south of there, also be boundary to Cottonwood. And so back to my point a minute ago, some folks have said, why not this area? We're trying not to impact our junior highs too much. When you take an area like this, and if you boundary this group to Cottonwood, what typically happens is, the smaller percentage that you send to a new school, the more likely that most of those students are going to go to the new feeder. So in other words, all of this area is currently a feeder in the dark green to Churchill. If we lose this area to Cottonwood, then Olympus and Olympus High, all great schools. But we also don't want to negatively impact Churchill in this case. Therefore, the choice by the PAC is to leave them all together. And so, even though we're a split feeder with Driggs, the higher number of your neighborhood kiddos that are together tend to stay together as they go on to their junior highs. That's the rationale behind not taking that area below 45th. Same map, I just put street names on it so you can see your street and what that looks like, okay? Now some people have asked me, Steve, what about, why didn't we do it this way? Why didn't we take this area also? I mean, just make it below 45th south. I mean, we could have. This area is this little triangular piece here, not many, I mean, 10 to 12 students. The rest of this area here, more 50 to 60 students, okay? We could, but then we felt like we were taking more than was necessary. And why move more than is necessary if you don't have to? Does it make weird boundaries? This is how weird boundaries are sometimes made in the district. I wish every boundary was clean as some of ours, Crestview and some of our nice rectangular or square boundaries that are nice, neat, straight boundaries that they just simply aren't. Busing. With that boundary, there is busing up here, and I'm guessing almost on a limb here, pretty sure, almost sure, that if any students here want a bus, there would be enough room on the bus to take also the remainder of the students here. Could they go over and get any students here? I don't know. That's a transportation question, because again, the law says the kind of have to take a direct route to the school, and they're not supposed to go out of their way, a circuitous route, to pick up more students, even if there's room. That's a transportation question. We're almost there, guys. What does that mean for open enrollment at Driggs? We hope to accommodate anyone who wants to go where they want to go. That's typical throughout the district. If you want to go to a certain school, and if there's room, we want to make that happen. Keep in mind, the state law basically says a school has to take students. The principal just can't say no for no reason. Whatever your capacity is, up to 90% of your capacity is what state law says is kind of the standard. Now, like a lot of laws, it's not perfectly written. That's the spirit of the law. What I mean is, that works pretty well in a secondary school. Because students can kind of be, you can take 3 or 4 students in almost any grade and put them in any class and absorb more students. In an elementary school, let's say you already have your 3rd grade, and your 3rd grade is already full. You've got, let's say, 30 students, which is too many. But then you have 4 or 5 more, let's say 6. You got 6 more 3rd graders that also want to attend. And you say, well, 6 more, what's the big deal? You still have room for another 50 or 60, it says here, because you're not to 90%. So if you're a principal and you take those students, that pushes your 2 3rd grade classes then up to 33. And the problem in elementary is, mentally, even us educators, we have to be careful, but kids come in 1s and 2s for his families. They don't come in nice, neat packages of 25. If they came in nice, neat packages of 25, you can just pull them off the shelf like that and say, yep, another 25 because that's another teacher. But we don't get enough per grade to warrant another teacher, then all we're doing is making class sizes larger. And then, I remember this as a principal, sometimes the same parents that are excited they got into the school, then come back a month later and say, wait a second, my classroom's overcrowded. What are we going to do about it? And so it's, as a principal, trying to juggle that and trying to make that work. Okay, so back to this. I'm going to back up for a second and show you. This is one of the more tricky areas that we've had to work with in a long time. What I mean is, we know how many boundary students live there. But we also know that some of those boundary students, we have finished in July, we have ALC. You can't just take every ALC student out of the equation. How many of those ALC students, when the program moves, will choose to move to the program? Or they say, I don't want to move, I want to stay there, therefore I'm going to become part of the group that goes to Driggs. So you've got ALC, you've got French and ULI, you've got students that live in this area that attend Eastwood. You've got students that have chosen to leave this area because of the table I showed you a minute ago, that they wanted larger classrooms or more choice in rooms that are anticipating will want to come back. So when somebody says, how many students, I'm making myself busy doing this. How many students are going to be coming from one side to Driggs? This is a big range. As low as 100, as high as 200. I don't know if I've ever had that big a range before. Can we do surveys? Can we reach out today and do a survey of just DLI or ALC and ask that question now? You can. We've tried that, but when all these emotions are out there, it's just not very accurate. And then people tend to change their mind once everything settles down. And so, point is, we'll do our best. When the window opens on November 15th, the open enrollment window, and closes, I think it's February 6th. And if you're a student and you want to go to Driggs or remain at Driggs, you're in one of these 2 areas, you want to remain at Driggs. Apply for a permit. We will not know for sure probably until that window closes in February. Because we will have to do a priority something like this. It depends when the window closes how many we have as to how stringent that priority is going to be. If we have just enough, and I think we can accommodate almost everybody that wants to be there. I'm hopeful, very hopeful. But for some reason, there are 50 to 75 more than capacity. For instance, current Drake students, starting with current fourth graders, with descending priority for lower grades. In other words, I don't want you to have to go to 3 schools in 3 years if you can help it. You've been at Driggs for 3 or 4 years already. This change would mean 1 year at Driggs and another within the next year off somewhere else. So priority would be given to the oldest students first of the grades. And then, if those older students have siblings, we want to try to keep families together where possible. It's not always possible. Current Morningside students, that's a challenge. If you've been at Morningside, but you're there on permit, but you've also been with that friend group for years, and these are hard. We're going to try to accommodate that as best we can. All right, I'll do it. Current fourth graders right now. So in other words, next year's fifth graders. These are the ones that can impact. Don't want them to have to move if we can help them. Now, having said all that, I won't put them on the spot. I'm standing there talking about an amazing school. Guys, we're lucky in this area. We have just amazing schools all around. Cottonwood is one of those. I encourage you to reach out, go get a tour, talk, look at the data, all those things. Especially if your student is younger and has years to go, consider that. Please consider it, but it's your choice. I believe in choice, and I want you to have that, but I also want you to give it equal due diligence and consider that. Okay? Quickly, almost there, French DLI standalone. DLI is tricky. There are no perfect solutions here. It's tricky. It's hard to find another place, another school to move a program of at least 250 students and make that work. You have to have enough capacity. You have to have a healthy sized school already, as far as number of teachers, grade level of students, and that's not easy in this situation. We also looked at what we did last year. We're pretty excited. Last year, we took Valley Crest Elementary and did a similar thing. It closed as a boundary school. It reopened for a program similar to this. In this case, it was Spanish. It went from Valley Crest to Dos Mundos. And we were, I gotta be honest, we were hopeful that they would have 300 students, and we would kind of try to build from there. They opened the year with 450 students. When you can do some cool things, when you can add kindergarten, by the way, and when you can focus on one thing, streamline it, have a master schedule, not have all these debates and challenges with traditional and DLI and ALC, and focus on one thing. This also helps keep that program at church up, because that's where the junior high portion of French DLI is. And we have some dynamic people in the program. We believe we can build this program. We've learned some things even from those windows last year. So our recommendation is, Morningside will close. It is considered a closure of a boundary school. So we're talking 2 closures. It would house this French DLI program. You add kindergarten, and we believe that with the right marketing, and we think we can get that out there, and have a special, unique program, not just for our district, but we think we can attract from outside of the district. A word about this table. Projected new enrollment. You can see capacities, projected new enrollment. Are you going to come back to me, if all this goes through, come back to me next year and say, Steve, those numbers are off? They're not what you said. Probably, yes. And I'm going to tell you why. Because almost every study we do, there's the human factor. If these were widgets and we could tell them where to go and they all showed up, the numbers would be damn good. But what we're projecting is all those things I've talked about already, and that's AOC, DLI, boundary changes, open enrollment, where people choose to go. What this represents is the boundary changes And I can tell you, what we've seen in the past is it'll take, on average, 2 to 3 years to get to where we think the projections will level out. We see the students that are in a school that want to stay in school. But after a while, that community builds. It does build. And then they do start to feel like they belong to another school. And we do start to see those numbers go up, and whatever boundary change that is. So they're going to look different than this, I can almost guarantee you. Okay, so if you want to call me next year, if this goes through and say, man, I told you, Steve, you just don't get it. We can have that conversation. But we do feel like, I keep saying unfortunately, because we've had to do this too many times. Again, this is my 12th year in this position. We've had 10 schools closed. We've moved quite a few programs. We have some experience in this, and experience tells us this is what will happen. Okay, and then follow-ups. This is where we're at. We saw the thing at the beginning. We have I go back to the board on October 7th for an update. I don't know if we'll have any more changes at that point. We may. When we have an answer to ALC and where it's going to end, we may. I'm hopeful that we will on that day. November 18th. This is a later board meeting, by the way. Typically it's earlier in November, but because of Election Day and I think Veterans Day, it's pushed back, I think, to the third Tuesday. But then December 2nd is the following week. What I want you to do is come to the microphones, ask your questions so everyone can hear you. You see, we have these taped off. 2 reasons. One, so you don't feel too uncomfortable standing next to people. And 2, if you can't stand that long and need to sit down, use the one that's taped off and sit down there. And then I'll try to go back and forth. And I welcome your questions. Thank you for being so patient. I'm sorry? You betcha. Fire permit.
Hi, my name is Lisa Rosella. I'm the president of our local Utah Home Lighting and Paramedic Association. And I understand that economic considerations are very weighty with this decision, but I just wanted to bring to light the fact that this area is also known for its open space and recreation and proximity. Beautiful area and Wasatch Front. And there's a lot of users of this area, including our group, and it represents a large portion of our safety. When we hike up Grand Peak and we fly off, we don't intend to land at the school. We like to fly back to the point of the mountain or wherever we can, but it offers us a very good safety outlet. And if the school were to close and it were to be sold or leased or whatever, obviously there would be no guarantee to maintain either the open space or the actual boundaries of the open space. Am I correct?
Yeah, open space, yes.
Okay, so I really my purpose here today is just to kind of bring another aspect to this and say we really need this open space. We really desire it for not just convenience and recreation, but for our safety. So I just wanted to voice that.
That's great, thank you. I'll just respond by saying, first of all, I admire that. I see it, I pass the front of the mountain every day, it's amazing, I see everything you do here. We want to keep maintaining open spaces wherever we can also, whenever feasible. Again, if you look at what we've done with our properties, we have quite a few that the building is gone, but we maintain it as an open space for community use. We also have a lot of sports programs that want and need that space, and whether it's for walking or whatever, we value that. And if at all possible, we want to maintain that. So,
is there any way you can make a kind of an easement to lease or sell that could maintain that particular field?
Sure. So again, if we do lease it or sell it, we can put provisions in a contract for wherever we want, to make sure the public has access to it, those kinds of things. And that's what we prefer. I can't guarantee that. I sit on the real estate committee, but in the end, we can make recommendations, and that depends on a lot of factors. Depends on what it's used for, right? We have groups that use buildings, and it really doesn't matter if people own the property at the same time. But I think I'd encourage you to please put that feedback in writing, and so we have that there, and that's a good reminder for us in real estate committee when we review things like that. That hey, those open spaces are valued. Perfect. Then you go here.
Can we go back to your slide quickly on the ALC revision you made this last week, or since the meeting 2 weeks ago? The slide you said the study on the ALC program. So just I want to make sure I confirm. Does this mean there was a conversation at the last meeting about reduction in resources for ALC? Is that mean that's on pause until this study is complete?
Yes. So and let me restate to make sure we're saying the same thing.
Yep.
Basically, this would keep, like it says there, status quo. In this case, meaning Woodstock will keep its program as is.
Yeah.
The group that's at LC will still have another second group. The question is where. So
Now, there was some conversation about 9% of resources to 5% of resources. Is that related to this as well?
that is part of the study that will be undertaken in the next year or two. I don't know how long it's going to take.
No change to the resource allocation until the study.
Correct.
Okay. And then related to that, is Morningside then still a viable location for where ALC could be moved to, or is your recommendation it's still a closure independent of this change?
And just to repeat, is Morningside a viable location to keep ALC students? Nothing's guaranteed, but I'm telling you honestly, at this point, not likely. Here's why, because we don't know how big that French DLI program is. We're going to try to push that really hard and see how big we can get that program. Now, if it only is 300, that's one thing. But if we can get up to 500, that's a challenge. I don't want to have to, if we're going to go this move once and make that decision. And as long as we have people moving, it seems most likely to do that now. That's our thinking. Okay, sorry, back over here.
All right, Steve, you say context is important, so I'm going to give you a little bit of context. I'm here because of things Julie Jackson has said. She even went as far as she set up a meeting between me, her, and you. It's been over a month and a half. She refuses to have that. It's pretty sad that our threshold as parents and community members, I was excited to come here and speak to Julie Jackson. This is the second meeting in a row she's not even here. Pretty ridiculous. She should be here.
I'm going to appreciate that. I'm going to let the superintendent respond to part of that. You can use that or either one of these.
I appreciate that concern as well, and we do have board members here, I was here as well. With respect to Julie Jackson, I do want to respectfully excuse her from being here tonight. She had a significant family emergency. And with due respect, I think if we were to make that information public, you would know that she's absolutely in the right place right now. You could certainly have your questions or concerns. I know that she was saving some of these meetings for us to be able to meet in October because we were unable to schedule any additional meetings in September. But I do want to formally excuse her from the meeting tonight. She's absolutely in the right place where she needs to be supporting a family member right now. And again, our thoughts and prayers with her.
What about her missing?
This is the second one. Anyways, so I had a bunch of questions. I posed them to her. She refused to answer them, said she couldn't answer them. The most concerning comment that she said to me was she's afraid her bias is at play with Cottonwood, seeing as she went to Cottonwood Elementary, her children went to Cottonwood Elementary, and she lives in Cottonwood Elementary now.
Okay, let me answer that part best I can. A board member's bias, and I'm saying this in front of the current board member sitting here. There's a reason we set up the process that we have. You have the superintendent, you have the board, and the PAC, which is the committee we talked about, which I chair. We do our best to keep those separate. Can the superintendent and we talk, we do all the time. PAC, board members have asked even to come to PAC to talk. We've said, respectfully, no thanks. It's a, not quite a checks and balances, but it's a way for us, because regardless of what a board member thinks, the recommendation still comes from the PAC. Now, the board, in the end, is the deciding factor. Obviously, they make the decision, not PAC. It's also set up that if one board member feels something, there's reason for seven, right? So one board member, if that's the case, can't unduly influence things. But that's,
She's very vocal on social media about her bias to keep Concord open. And it created a whole bunch of questions that I was hoping to get answered here. Now watching this, I have even more questions. The reasonings just don't make sense. You say you won't send the students from Morningside up just south of 45th farther east to Cottonwood because you don't want to create a split feeder. You're doing that with Driggs already. You're creating a split feeder at Driggs. So why not create one in Cottonwood? The reason I was told Cottonwood wouldn't be closed, she told me it was from the fact they didn't want to create a school desert in that area. You're closing Eastwood, you're closing Morningside, two contiguous school boundaries. You're creating a larger desert. The reasoning isn't making any sense. You're putting so much emphasis into this French program, and you guys are sitting here saying we want to bring people in from outside of the district to this French program. Our property taxes are funding these schools. Why is there such a big emphasis the district should be looking out for families within the district first, the students within the district first, not families outside of the district.
we don't have enough students inside our district to fill our weekends. We don't have enough students inside the district. Every district is trying to attract students to their district. So we're trying to do that with ours. We want to attract. We have to be careful with our programs in the district, not to cannibalize other schools. Understand, when students come from outside the district, we get money for that. We don't take students and not have to give them services for nothing. We get money just like we do for ours. And so if we get 2,000 students from another district, then we get the money and the resources that come with those students. So they don't come and with nothing. They come with money. Sorry? I'm trying to answer the question.
Do I know that? Yeah, I get that, but property taxes have been raised for years, all to go to a small subset of people. You are now, the vast majority of people at Morningside are now being displaced due to a tiny small subset of in-district people. We're cannibalizing our in-district families to try to attract outside people. And I just, why such an emphasis on that? And you're now affecting 4 different elementary schools just for this French program. You're creating multiple split feeder elementaries where you yourself said you're trying not to do it. But by this decision, you're creating multiple.
So the split feeder issue, like I explained with Morningside, is we have split feeders, but when we do, we would prefer to keep them, our splits larger, so that they choose to stay in that feeder network with many friends. I'm never saying you can't ever have split feeders.
I've read all the feedback from our spring meetings. I've not been part of the PAC, so I can't explain exactly what the conversations and discussion happened there. But I can tell you that in participating in the meetings this last spring, in the direction and the guidance from the board was to listen to that feedback. And the feedback that we heard most often was, rather than discontinuing options for students, when we should be expanding them. And we actually agree with that notion. So we're trying to look at ways that we can enhance options and opportunities for kids to attract students from out of district. And I will tell you why we would want to do that, because it actually reduces your tax bill in the long run, because we do get a WPE for every student that does come into Granite School District. And so while our capital outlay is paid for by our property taxes, that economy of scale allows us to provide additional service to more kids that we serve. So with respect, if you look at what our community committee did, and what PAC took from that, it was simply based on the recommendations and the guidance that we got from our spring meetings. And one of them was enhance and expand these programs, not eliminate them.
Show us the data.
The next question would
One
be,
more question, and we're trying to see programs and go back.
the next question, if you could go back to the slide of the projected enrollments. So you say your projected enrollment, or the projected number of kids coming from Morningside at Driggs could be anywhere between 100 and 200. You don't have any way of knowing what that would be. Yet, on your projected enrollment, you have 100 kids switching over to Driggs. That, if it goes to 200, Driggs is already at over 90% capacity. Yet you claim you're hopeful that everybody that wants to stay at Driggs can stay at Driggs. And how is that going to happen?
I'm trying to be as honest as I can. I am very hopeful. Everyone can go where they want to go. But I'm also telling you that is a very complicated situation in Morningside with all those programs. Do I know the minds of all those parents and families, what they're going to choose to do? Absolutely not. And that's why I'm trying to be transparent too, to tell you, you can see the numbers. Are they going to be exactly that next year? No, they're not. But if I don't put a number up there, then I'm accused of just guessing and not giving you information. So I'm trying to give you a projection with also giving you background as to why projections cannot be sometimes accurate, especially in a case like this. And especially, quite frankly, in this area, you have a lot more movement and mobility where students and parents can take their students where they want them to go. And with that mobility, it's harder to predict. Great questions. Thanks. Bye.
Before my time starts, can I ask what board members are here? Yeah, which board members are here? Is that two?
Why are you running as board member?
That's okay. We'll let them be themselves.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Tara Thomas. I'm a parent at Eastwood Elementary, and I'm here to ask the board to reconsider the Area 5 closure proposal. The current PAC proposal creates serious risks for the Churchill Skyline feeder pattern in our community schools. The proposal greatly reduces 2 of the 4 elementary schools feeding into Churchill, leaving Oak Ridge as the only direct feeder. That is an extremely vulnerable position for Churchill's enrollment and in turn for Skylines. To assume Eastwood families will all or even mostly enroll at Oak Ridge is unrealistic. What polling has been done to learn where Eastwood families will actually go? Churchill already struggles with low enrollment. What data shows this change will strengthen it? Eastwood families here tonight can tell you no one from the district has contacted them about next year. Last year, Eastwood brought in 112 students from 21 out-of-boundary schools, and also 30 students from out-of-district. Eastwood has a proven success rate of attracting out-of-boundary and out-of-district students. Overwhelmingly, families choose Eastwood. If ultimately prioritizing out-of-district students is of importance to the district, then you need to consider what Eastwood is capable of. You've already allocated $192 million to rebuild Skyline. Severing its feeder pattern without fully understanding the impact is fiscally irresponsible. Taxpayers expect accountability for their money. They don't want to fund a Skyline that ends up filled with out-of-district students at the expense of their own community. And if you do continue to desire out-of-district students, then keep Eastwood open. We're doing more poaching than any other elementary school in our district. The proposed relocation of Morningside LSC's program to Woodstock also removes them from Skyline. How could the PAC come to this feeder conundrum after spending countless hours creating this proposal? Are you putting your stamp of approval on it, or is this scenario an oversight? Hard to imagine it's a desirable position for the Skyline network. If I was on the board, I'd be asking questions, lots of questions. Julie Jackson doesn't appear to be asking any, nor has she ever properly represented the Eastwood community. In addition to the community council meeting she missed last week, she also missed a community council meeting at Eastwood last spring. I would like to know that she did not have a meeting with Eastwood before the February PAC proposal. In fact, Julie isn't here tonight, as we know. I'd like to reiterate, Julie omitted key information at the February board meeting where she misrepresented Eastwood teachers and their alleged struggles and urged for the board to proceed with the study, even though several board members were heard asking for the district to slow down and let the dust settle. If she had met with Eastwood, she would have known that while small, our school is mighty. Our teachers are highly skilled. Our program, which is one of the few gold STEM programs in the state, is highly effective. They wanted to be left alone. To her embarrassment, Julie's been loudly advocating for Eastman's closure since the September recommendation. It seems that no time was spent asking questions on her behalf. In fact, no board member had any questions or comments at the September board meeting after learning the plan of closing Eastville. So tell me, what questions have you been asking about this recommendation since September? What data has been provided to you, board members, by the PAC, which has not been released? This decision is too important to rush. Please reconsider the study, do the necessary due diligence, and bring families into the process in a real way. That's how we rebuild trust and protect our schools. You say, from here, anything's possible. Anything's possible should mean building on our strengths, not dismantling them. Thank you.
Thank you. So this next question is also more for the board's insight and
Sorry, so.
Thank you. So this question is more for the board's consideration or the district administration. This question is to assess the due diligence of the PAC study to date and the district's readiness for the December 2nd decision. What are the top alternatives or changes to the September 2nd recommendation and why?
You want me?
Yes, please.
I did not thought you.
This is for the board's consideration in assessing the readiness for the district to move forward with the December 2nd.
Would you repeat the question specifically?
The question is, what are the top alternatives to the September 2nd recommendation and why?
Alternatives are offshoots of whatever that basic recommendation was. I mean, are you saying, are there other schools that could be closed? Or
I guess what I'm saying is, as a board member, I would like to see that there was some comparative analysis performed and you would be keenly aware of alternatives and why you did not choose those. Or is there really just one solution?
Right. I mean, alternatives are not closing it. That's one question. The struggle in some years, and I've talked to some people about this, is we have sometimes come to the board with 3 or 4, sometimes 5 alternatives, 5 different options.
I see that.
And when we do that, we get a lot of people that say, narrow this down quicker so we can get to it. Because once you get 5, then it's easy to say, well, about 7 or 8. And so because we waited a little later, it's September 2nd, and doing our due diligence to make sure we understood things, there was the recommendation, but that doesn't mean that, just like the LC, we have a recommendation there, and that part's already changed, right? And that's what we're doing tonight. We're still getting feedback. And if you have other alternatives that you want to be considered, we still have time to consider those. So that's what we're doing.
Did I understand the question? Just what alternatives does the board have for it? So just to kind of, sorry, go ahead. Just kind of outline the process a little bit more clearly and the board's role in this process. The district has to make a recommendation. His job is to run back and actually come up with those recommendations based on community feedback and input, right? My job is to make sure that process is followed and to make sure that we're adhering to state law and state statute. And then the board can either choose to follow the recommendation, alter the recommendation, or not follow the recommendation at all. It will ultimately be in their hands to decide. It is his job to run this meeting, to answer the questions, to be able to provide all feedback and information the board needs in order to make that decision. But I will tell you that it's tough for the board. The board's in a really tough and difficult position, even more so than I am as a superintendent, because I work for the board, and ultimately the pressure is on them as they can make a difficult decision to close schools with declining enrollment. Or they can face repercussions from the state legislature for not doing so, like we've seen in Salt Lake City School District. And so we're kind of a rock and a hard place that they expect us to be able to raise revenue, to be able to meet more and more demands as they cut funding, like they cut $7 million from our budget this last year. And at the same time, we're expected to be fiscally prudent and be automated and go through all those processes. So it's not a great time to be a school board member. I can tell you the pay is not lucrative, and the amount of time for a part-time position is not amazing. So they're not fixed with great solutions, but I know they are doing their best with the resources and the responsibility that has been tasked with them. And under the circumstances, I believe everyone is trying to do their best.
Now, I'm going to continue with the voluntary service. It's really incredible. And respectfully, for consideration for the board, I would ask that, or I would expect to see, or I hope to see some sort of comparative analysis with the alternatives or the solution presented, perhaps a head-to-head comparison between some of the schools up for closure. Why did we not consider some of the other ones and that sort of thing? There's a lot of reasons there.
So let me give you, boy, this is a summary, right? Because I can't go into detail on everything, but let me tell you some of these options. So if you look at, let's go through the schools real quick, some of these options. It doesn't take too long to see that Penn and Oakwood, even though Oakwood is officially not in that, we consider it part of the study. Penn and Oakwood are newer schools. It doesn't make sense to close them, right? No, we said everything on the table, we said that at the beginning, but it doesn't take long to say we don't see any viable scenario where we think it's wise to close a newer school.
So I really don't expect necessarily an explanation of potential options that you might consider. I guess the question is more of what is there any formal analysis of a comparative head-to-head that's been done, and and I guess listing that presented in a slide before doing that sort of thing would be the expectation moving forward. I know there's lots of other people have questions too. I do have a second question I'd like to get to quickly, but that's okay. So the second question is to assess the urgency of the multi-grade classroom issue, which is why we're here and making this decision by December 2nd. Why can't we postpone the PAC study for more time to allow for the due diligence? I think a lot of the questions tonight were regarding lack of information or research they'd like to see. So could you quantify the cost of the multi-grade classroom issue and why this decision needs to be made by December 2nd? It's a little earlier, right?
All right, so another way of saying this, what does it hurt to wait?
Could you quantify the cost of the multi-grade classroom issue, which is bringing us here tonight?
Yeah.
And the urgency of that?
Multi-grade, split grade level, as we call it, to make sure we're talking the same thing.
Yes.
The cost is more about educational outcomes than it is anything. It's just not good pedagogy. It's not good practice. You saw, Gainer, can you pull out the slide that has Eastwood and Oak Ridge, their staffing, just like we had in Morningsides? I think it's near the end of it. One of the costs of waiting is projections show it continuing to go down. Even with this conversation this year, we have quite a few Eastwood parents that we know have already gone to other schools and are trying to leave Eastwood. And if that happened and you remain open another year, I imagine that goes from 240, and it could, who knows how many, but it could easily go 200 or less. And then you're looking at multiple split grade level classrooms. So cost, I guess I'd have to have a business administrator give you a dollar amount to what that means. But it's just, we know, despite the amazing teachers we have, what you end up doing is trying to, you're teaching both. And not easy. And even with amazing teachers, we know that's not been a good process. And so the fear in waiting, and also when you wait with the idea that one school could close, and we've tried this in the past, believe it or not, of making a decision and waiting an additional year to implement. So it's 2 years out. But what happens is those staff start to leave. Because if they can choose to leave, if they see an opening in another school they want to go to, they'll go there quickly. And you try to rehire, but who's going to choose to go work at the school that has the chance at this point of closing? So we see a lot of that turnover. Because they know if they wait until the school closes, it's a tough process. They don't lose a job, but but they have less agency in where they end up. And so that's the risk, two of the risks, the weight, and quite frankly, I'm surprised they're not worse. And you can see some of these class sizes, a couple of yards, that's what you get. And when you have one class in a grade, you just don't have a choice. But both of those are still small and small and small. And so you get those peaks and valleys, and it would just, you anticipate it would be worse than that each year you go.
Do you have
Because
information about what this looked like before you said you're going to possibly close these for?
what these numbers are,
What this looked like before you said, hey, you might close your school?
for sure. I mean, last year, for instance, both of these schools were 260, 270. So, but I want to keep to our norms and that's sticking to the questions of folks here. So, thank you for your questions.
I don't know about any of you, but I'm having a really hard time in this brand new high school here. It's very echoey. I don't know. But come tomorrow to Skyline and hear some more about this. It's building and building, because finally people are hearing about it. Thank you. Now, my question to you is not really a question, but we were specifically promised that Eastwood and Skyline would be rebuilt as part of a large property tax increase that Granite School District demanded. We gave you the tax increase to you at great cost to our neighborhood homeowners. Skyline still isn't finished, while several other schools have started and completed at the same time frame. And now we're going to close Eastwood and I understand Morningside. Frankly, this is tax fraud on Granite School District taxpayers. Now, the second one thing I want to know is, can you confirm that Eastwood will not become a new fire station and medium to high density housing for public employees ever?
I'm Bill Mosley, I'm the superintendent. In 2017, I was the director of communications and community outreach. I ran that bond campaign. And I can show you the voter information template. It's still on the GSP Future website and outlines which projects will be paid for with bond funds. Eastwood was not one of those schools.
Certainly was, but Rosie was described that way. It was promoted.
I'm sorry, can I finish?
Well,
I'm not done, sorry. I appreciate that, and welcome follow-up questions. So if you look at the voter information template, we are required under law to outline which projects will be paid for using bond funds. It was a $265 million bond, $268 million, I can't remember off the top of my head. The information is still on gsdfuture.org. That pretty much paid for the two high schools and nothing else. The idea behind outlining all of our projects for phase one was, as we retained the tax revenues we paid off the bonds, we could continue to rebuild schools with additional revenue to our capital fund. And the idea was that we would be able to rebuild Eastwood at some point and Oak Ridge, and they are still listed on that project phase, as well as Orchard Elementary and Sandberg Elementary, which had previously been closed by the school board. They're still listed on our phase one strategic 4-year capital plan. And we will not remove those items until the board tells us that we can't. We can't actually move them from, as a superintendent, I can't take that off the rebuild list until the board authorizes me to do so. So when we get to those projects, the board will have to make a decision at that point in time whether they want to rebuild a school that is now been closed. So with respect to that, the cost savings for a school district in the way that funding happens here in the state of Utah is not necessarily the M&O or the maintenance and operations portion of our budget. Yeah, we will save some fixed costs in terms of not having to have duplicate principal, duplicate secretary, duplicate custodian, which are provided for. That costs pretty minimal. The cost savings will be from not rebuilding the school that we no longer need. And if you look at the data here for Eastwood Elementary, regretfully, in that boundary right now, there's only 171 families who are boundary to that particular school location, right? So I'm assuming that's was probably a basis for Mac's recommendation. Only 125 of those families who live in Boundary are coming to that school.
That is a myopic way to look at it, because of Eastwood's excellent reputation. People come from all over the valley. I don't understand the but they do. They follow from a long way across the valley because of the reputation of teachers and the quality that Eastwood promotes.
I absolutely 100% agree. And guess what? We have the best schools in the entire state, right here in this area. Actually, if you look at the data sets, most of these schools are in the top 10, and if you look at their data, I understand, and we're looking at high growth and some other factors. These are all high quality schools. They are the best performing schools in the state of Utah. So it would be our goal and our hope that we can take some of these quality educators who are amazing and been dedicated to their service and continue to serve students in this area.
That defeats the whole purpose of quality education. We have quality built within every teacher, with every assistant, with every aide. But now I have more.
You can turn your mic so it's towards you.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? Nobody can hear. I'm sorry. Will you confirm that Eastwood is not going to become a new fire station and get to high-density housing for public employees?
I can tell you, as the superintendent.
No, this is crazy. Everyone is saying nobody's answering any questions. They're just talking around it. Okay, tell me what you want, then I'll ask the yes or no.
We got to get on to the other questions, but go ahead, sir.
Understood. To this date, I have no request from anyone outside entity to purchase that property, either from Mill Creek City or Unified Fire Authorities. The answer is, at this point in time, I have no request from any agency to purchase that property.
Okay, that's that.
Usually when an entity wants to purchase our property, they send us what's called a letter of intent. For instance, we closed Redwood Elementary last year, and West Valley City would like to purchase or lease that property. They sent us a letter of intent. We said, that's nice, we would be concerned about this, this, and this, and it starts a negotiation process. I've received nothing on Eastwood Elementary. I have no request from any entity. And I gotta tell you, we're not entertaining any request until our board actually makes a decision on a potential closure. We're not gonna sell a building that we're currently using. And since Eastwood has not actually formally been closed, I am not going to entertain any inquiries on that at this point.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you for being so patient.
I have one more question. If Brandon School District, says that they are a believer in children's education, why won't you sell us a Eastwood to a charter school? Candy River Academy, formerly Candy River Elementary, which Brandon School District sold, they said they're not selling anything, is now a charter school that is at capacity and families are waiting. Keep Eastwood, my friend, as it is, as a prime school, elementary school, or make it a charter. Thank you.
Thank you.
On the morning side, school mix. And Steve, I want to thank you for standing up and down here 2 weeks after you got beat up. I was there, I'm seeing you tomorrow as well. Yeah, I want to also recognize the work for the ALC decision and looking forward to hopefully keeping on each other around. So I am one of the parents of that number 4 in that second grade. 2 weeks ago, September 8th, there were September 6th, 6th, close. There were 10 students in the class. When the video went out at the September 2nd meeting, 6 students moved on to French and started to find alternatives as part of risk mitigation. My kid has been in the split grade both last year and now he's in the second grade. What I have noticed about this is that if you look at the third grade tradition, the fourth grade tradition, the numbers start evening out a little bit. There will be attrition from the French students. kindergarten kids do it.
Let's just call them
We're gonna go in there. So I suspect that 4 number is a little misleading because as recently as 2 weeks ago, before the board's video came out, there were 8 or 9 students in that class. Now it's down to 4, and yet it's done. The ladies doing a fantastic job, at least for my kid, I can speak for that. The other part I want to just point that out, that this number of projecting this mixed first grade will change next year. Morningside is the only elementary school that allows ALC and French students who drop out of those programs or don't test in to move into a traditional program without disrupting the mix of where they're going. It's a really important point, is where are you going to, because I have a daughter in the ALC at Queens. In the ALC, son's there. So if my daughter goes to wherever the ALC is, are you guaranteeing that my son will be able to be in the same school, or am I going to be running around separately? That's the first question.
So just restate, if you have a child in DLI or ALC, and tradition, and then for whatever reason are not part of that program anymore, then you just.
No, let's say she is in ALC and you're moving it from Morningside to wherever. And my son is now technically in Driggs. I'm going this way. Are you guaranteeing those parents who have siblings, one in an ALC and the other in a traditional, into the same school?
Yeah, but we've always given priority to siblings of ALC students and DLI students, quite frankly. And so, unless, now, you're going to hear this, sometimes there are exceptions, for instance, especially with special education. If a child with a sibling needs certain special education, I can't always guarantee that because by law we have to have certain sizes in the classroom. But it's pretty rare, I can never say never, but it's pretty rare for a sibling to not also be at that school.
Okay. Are all the ALC teachers from Morningside going to be put into the new ALC program wherever it houses itself next?
I'll have to ask HR, but I don't know why they wouldn't if they want to. I mean, we would still need the same number of ALC teachers, and I think most of them would want to go, right? Can we require them to go? Of course not. What if a teacher doesn't want to go? That's their choice. But it makes sense to me, and I can verify with HR, that frankly I would be surprised if they want to go. Why wouldn't they?
Can we move to the slide where you show all the students' minutes?
The
last one, the last one. The one where you had a full summary of it. Yeah, that's one. So, I counted it up, it's about 570 students total that would undergo disruption, having to move boundaries or whatever based on fall enrollment and projected new enrollment. At the same time, we're talking about we need to bring in students from out of boundary. We've got them at Morningside. You've got 570 kids out there. Some of them are coming from out of boundary. What are you trying to accomplish by bringing in just DLI? And in recent news from Friday, is the district going to pay $100,000 to recruit French teachers from H-1B visas for the French program? In all likelihood, traditional French native speakers are going to need a visa that the school district likely cannot afford at $100,000 a month. So the French program is going to die, in all likelihood because of staffing, unless there are lots of French speakers in the valley, I presume.
No.
And you're going to list up 570 kids to achieve nothing with the closure of Morningside, which already has 570 kids and is growing students for ALC, for traditional craft, and for French and other programs. To the lady who just made a comment, why not double down and fill out the other schools, by increasing recruitment for traditional track or whatever programs they offer? Why are we throwing down the 40 to recruit French students from around the valley to get to the dollars and just put it out? When you can get those dollars and put them without disrupting 570 kids combined
having to move from Driggs to Rosecrest to wherever the heck they gotta go. They don't choose nothing. If you're trying to make numbers and get dollars, I don't see it. Where's the data? Why wasn't Upland considered? Where's the numbers that validate that Morningside has to go, Upland doesn't? And I can go folks who are from Upland, I'm just using that as an example. I don't want Upland to shut down.
I think I understood the question, but I'll try to reiterate. What's the purpose of trying to do a French DLI download magnet? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's the point. You're going to shut down a neighborhood school for tax-paying neighbors, kids are safely going there, make them zigzag along on 27th East, 45th South.
Well,
And likely had an empty building without staff because you pulled $100 grand out of Friday to get the French-speaking native. And you have struggled with French-speaking natives last year at Morningside. We know that.
yes, sir. Thank you. He'll talk about this slide here in a second and speak to the PAC's recommendation. I can't speak to the PAC's recommendation. I wasn't involved with that. You're looking at me over here. I was simply pointing out the fact that the more students we bring back into our schools, either from charters or from out of district, benefits our budget, our bottom line. Let me finish. How many students come to Skyline that are out of district? Almost 40%. How many students come to Wasatch Junior High? If we were simply going off of numbers of in-boundary students, we have 1,100 at Skyline. Okay, we wouldn't have rebuilt a school for Skyline for 1,100 kids, right? That wouldn't make much sense, but we have something magical happening there. And we'd like to see if we can continue to grow that program because it benefits your kids in as much as it benefits a kid from Salt Lake School District or Canyon School District. So with our French program here, we did something comparable over in Valley Crest. We turned it into a Spanish language immersion academy, and we've been able to draw back students that were not attending Grand School District schools, that were going to charters or going someplace else, without robbing Peter to pay Paul and reduce the amount of schools that we needed to close. When you hear me saying we're trying something here, it's based on the feedback that you gave us. That we should be trying to market our respect. If you go through literally 5,000 lines and comments that we received from this last spring, we were told constantly stop closing schools.
Yeah, just start from that. That's exactly what we're saying.
I don't have that ability, I'm sorry. I don't. When would it be okay for us to close a school? When it's at 100 kids? When it's at 75? That's not good.
87%.
I would love to let
87% Morningside. What are you talking about?
with due respect, how many of those kids are coming from out of 100?
The same number that you want to get for French.
We're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So we don't close this particular school location and try and draw more families in. We're going to have to go and close in another location.
To your point about Skyline, I do recognize the building. I drive by it every day. I ride my bike there. Yeah, you built it for $200 million. I know that very well. You have competition coming up your way from West Time and from Highland New. Those two bills are coming up in 5 years. They're also $200 million in pop rebuilds. So whatever scarcity of facilities Salt Lake School District had, it's kind of going to go away in the next 3 to 4 years. It's a fact that you want to keep the schools open, bring in more kids into all the tracks that are there, so that they can feed the Skyline, because the draw of Skyline starts with a little bit less, not enough, but a little bit less.
With due respect, that's
Keep that feed into it. Your shops are inside. Parents like us, a lot of parents brought up by the ladies here last time, who work up, are going going to start moving away, and then we all move into Salt Lake School District. It is a risk I don't believe the school district has accounted for as to what's happening with community schools, which is a big risk you guys are taking right now, and we would like to see the data of all the schools. The data posted in the last email that came through from Ms. Gagan, that was not data. That was nothing. That was a simple, crappy PowerPoint, to be quite honest. Give us the hard numbers, let us look at the data.
I don't know what you know referencing. With respect, you can look at all our vulnerability data numbers that are on the website. You're talking about ALC. You're talking about ALC. So.
Hi, I'm Ron Smith, Kids Eastwood, I'm Kids Church now. Oh, sorry.
You can pull it out that stand.
Is that better? I have a daughter that's moving in kindergarten that I'd like to send to Eastwood, but probably not sending her if we can do that. Going to call a bit of novel here relative to the slide you have up and the superintendent's point about the good things that come from out-of-district parents. Eastwood's doing pretty well at that, so it applies to Skyline, which should probably apply to Eastwood too. But that is not the point that I was asked to address on the safety issues, notably walkability, one of the closure factors, I think in the first or second slide. We used to renovation now Eastwood across the street from Eastwood. And my wife always worried about being able to go to job. So that donut hole you identify north of the canyon, but not in the bus zone. I appreciate that people drive crazy everywhere, the hills are steep. There is above average craziness for anybody trying to walk to Oak Ridge. The Safe Schools route, the Department of Transportation does. Eastwood's got a lot of safe routes. Oak Ridge has them, even for the kids that are already on that side of the canyon. If you start talking about how they could get there, whether it's you try and roll the sidewalks you have and go all the way over to Oakview and then up along Wasatch, whether you try and cut through and connect to Jupiter or stay in Jupiter or something like that, those are really good. I mean, that four-way at the intersection of 3800 and the back way out of the north side of the Toad is particularly sketchy. The entirety of Olympus Hills is beyond sketchy if you're going to try and find a sidewalk. So, legitimate safety concerns. I mean, there was one time when Eastwood did a field trip to go to a bowling alley. And if you can imagine a bunch of kids, like I think you'd have elementary school kids, walking from Eastwood along Wasatch bowling alley, you're going to get a lot more of that stuff. I'm pretty amazed no one got kicked off. I certainly hope that doesn't happen. So we'll send this stuff to you in the comments and all that. I really think we need to think about safety considerations here, because it's just a hard place to get to when it's dry, and it's super sketchy when it's winter. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. So I'm Kim Edison. I'm an Eastwood parent, and I also live in Emigration Canyon, and I have a proposal for you. So here's an idea. I think that what you should do is to transition Eastwood into a STEAM magnet school. So Eastwood is perfectly positioned for this. It's been designated, as one of the other Eastwood parents mentioned, it's been designated a STEM gold school. It's the only school in Brandon School District that's either platinum, gold, or even silver. It's the only school. There's fantastic STEM program there already. We have great support for STEAM Fest and for the STEM year. Great teaching for STEM. The teachers there are fantastic. In every grade, we have, for all grades but 2, there are 2 gifted certified teachers. So both teachers are gifted certified, and every grade has at least 1. So it's really a fantastic school, very well positioned for that. But I just want to talk personally why I think it would be such a great school for this. So we chose Eastwood. So one of the reasons why we moved to Emigration Canyon when we moved to Salt Lake was because it would feed into Eastwood. I actually called Deanne Meadowcroft and talked to her on the phone. We were thinking about moving. I was just so happy that we could get into Eastwood because we would live in downtown. We lived in Immigration Canyon. So after talking to her about the school and learning more about it, our oldest child is in the ALC program. He tested in kindergarten, but we decided to keep him at Eastwood anyways because they have these gifted certified teachers, and it was really a great fit for him. We actually tried to do the ALC at Morningside for a year, and while I think the program there is good, my child felt that Eastwood was still a better fit for him because the STEM program there was better, and he felt like there was more challenges and opportunities for him doing STEM at Eastwood than at Morningside. And so I just propose that you consider that as an option. I think the other thing that it would do is it would draw more students in from out of district and keep the students that you have. So I think, as the prior speaker just mentioned, the issue with closing down programs at schools is that then you'll lose students, because what about kids, parents who have kids or in families, right? The families who have one kid who wants to do DILI and another kid that doesn't, then they're stuck. They're not going to go to Morningside anymore. So you may actually end up losing children from the French program rather than gaining them. With STEM is great. You don't need to bring in Indian, people from other countries to teach STEM. We've got plenty of great scientists in this country that you can recruit to teach. We already have Mr. Andy Bisco teaching at Eastwood, and he's fabulous. So I think that we could keep the students we have and even get more students from out of district if we were to make it into a magnet school, rather than losing students. I, for one, am not going to send my kids to Oak Ridge. It's not ranked as high as Eastwood is. It's more dangerous. There's no reason why I would send my kids there. The longer bus ride, I'm going to work with the other parents from Immigration who close Eastwood, and we're going to take those Immigration Canyon kids somewhere else. We're not going to go to Oak Ridge.
This is a challenging time. My name is Jen Tomchak. I have a graduate at Eastwood who's at Churchill. I have a current 5th grader at Eastwood, and I have a daughter who's supposed to be starting kindergarten at Eastwood next year. Thank you. I have lived in the Cove, and I currently live in Immigration Canyon. And all the things that you said are the criteria tonight of why you're making the decision that you are making, the recommendation that you are making. It does not make sense to close Eastwood. You said that student outcomes and opportunities for those students are what you're looking at. But Eastwood is one of the top 10 schools in the state. It's one of the only full STEM elementary schools. And it has, someone else from our group is going to be talking about this, it has the lowest attrition of any of the schools that you're looking at. In addition to that, you say you're looking to bring in out-of-district students. Why are you going to alienate the people who are already choosing to bring their kids in from out-of-district to hopefully somehow get some other out-of-district students to come to the French program? That doesn't make any sense. There are plenty of parents who are willing to commute to Eastwood because it's easy to get to, and because it's a top 10 school. Those parents are not going to choose to take their kids to Oak Ridge. It's less convenient, and it doesn't have the scores to bring those kids from out of state, or from out of district.
Eastwood is an amazing school. Oak Ridge is an amazing school. If you look at the last 3 to 4 years on the data gateway through the state, I think 3 of the last 4 years, Eastwood has been near the top. This last year, Oak Ridge was across the board. In 24 school year, Oak Ridge scored better in all 3 areas. But that's 1 year, it's a snapshot. But just to say that it's not Eastwood and everyone else has a business sector. They're all great schools. I'll go back to a question the superintendent asked, and I would ask a lot of us. What do we do if Eastwood continues to get smaller and smaller? Let's say that in 3 years, we don't make any changes, and in 3 years, it's down to 175.
Have you actually looked at the attrition rates? Because Eastwood has the lowest attrition rate of any school in the district.
Okay, that attrition.
It doesn't sound to me like you've actually looked at this data.
Okay, and when you say attrition, I'm talking both ways. If you're literally fewer students being born, it doesn't matter what attrition is, there are fewer students to draw from, and that's what's happening.
Have you actually looked at the trends in those neighborhoods? Because I lived in those neighborhoods. I lived in Cove for 20 years. I lived on the street for 20 years, where every single house except for 3 turned over. And all except for one of those houses was new families moving in because of Eastwood.
So,
I think you are saying, look at what's happening from census data that was 5-6 years ago, and not looking at what's actually happening in those neighborhoods, which is young families that are moving in and then moving in for those schools.
the families, they're saying, and what I'm hearing you say is that we're not accounting for all the turnover that is happening and will happen when, quote, older people are maturing wealth and young families move in. We are absolutely accounting for that. Let me first say, this is not just our data, this is what the demographer that we hire tells us. And this, guys, is why it's happening all over the country. The replacement rate, when new families move in, they're not having 5 and 6 children anymore. They're having 1 to 2, and that goes down each year. We're not having enough in-migration to offset birth rate issues. And so it is that simple. And again, it's not just us. Now, combine that in this area with higher real estate, and it's much more difficult to get larger families to move this area. We have some. We have families all the time moving in, but not fast enough to account for the loss of just fewer students being born.
So your response is not really answering the question that I asked, which is that Eastwood is a school that people will commute for, that they are coming from out of districts. You're talking about a completely different issue, and I didn't ask for your comments on it. I have actually a different topic that I was asked to
You're
talk
asking
about.
questions.
I have not asked a question. You told me that I have not asked a question. Okay. So I was asked to talk about specifically the busing and transportation issue. You heard Rod talk about the fact that Oak Ridge right now on the Department of Transportation website has 0, not 1, even for kids that are already going to that school, a safe walking route. It does not have a single safe walking route. And now you're suggesting that these kids should cross a canyon, go down and back up, crossing several very dangerous crossings to get there. The Canyon Road is dangerous, the Olympus Hills Shopping Center is dangerous, and the Olympus Hills Shopping Center is the only way that has a sidewalk the entire time. When I lived in Olympus Cove, there were slide-offs every single year. I had my 6-foot fence taken out by a car that was sliding off, and now you're going to suggest sending a bus through that canyon with kids walking on side streets that don't have sidewalks when there's not a single approved safe walking route on Oak Ridge as it stands right now. Do you know when was the last time that Oak Ridge met with a safe walking route coordinator of the district?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, when was the last time they met with a safe walking route coordinator? Because they don't have a single safe walking route on their map.
Safe walking routes, as they're called, are determined by the school community councils, right? You get together as school community council, look at your map, and a lot of you heard me say this before, I personally don't like the term, or the phrase, or the title, safe walking route. Because, let me finish before you laugh me off the stage. That's not a term that we designed, it comes from the state. The reason I don't like that is that's very subjective. Do we have unsafe, potentially unsafe, not perfect, imperfect, a lot of challenges with every walking route in the district? Pretty much. We do. Now, but I'm finish. When a community council gets together and creates a safe walking route, it may be safest or preferred, but that doesn't mean that it has sidewalks and lighting and everything about it perfect. It doesn't. I'm just telling you the reality. I can't, districts don't make sidewalks. You don't put lights up. You don't put pedestrian bridges up. It is just a recommendation to say, based on our community, this is the best walking route with your input. If you got to live with it, then we have. You as a parent then choose how you want your child to get to school. But, okay?
So if it's a requirement that they have a safe walking route, then how come there isn't one on their website? Because as far as I know, they're legally required to. What the department's website says is that if it doesn't have them, it's because they lack the infrastructure to provide a safe walking route. And they're already there, and now you're saying let's send them across the canyon. I want us to turn to a different point, because that wasn't Okay, well, I'm going to talk about what I was asked to talk about now, but I just feel like you've been very evasive with the questions that have been asked of you.
Okay.
So, let's see. As an immigration canyon parent, I'm very concerned about the suggestion from Julie Jackson, and now you, that the additional time to get to Oak Ridge is de minimis. You said you simulated the bus routes from Immigration Canyon to Oak Ridge last week. Am I correct that that was on Friday?
We did not go from Immigration Canyon to Oak Ridge. We simply.
So you were just targeted?
We simply did a bus through the pickup route at Oak Ridge and around that neighborhood.
So you haven't done the whole route, and you did it on Friday, is that right?
I drove the route in a car, and
That's what I asked.
and I'm telling you.
Okay, did you do it? So you haven't done the whole, did you do the partial route on Friday?
From Immigration Canyon?
No, the route that you said that you just did, did you do it on Friday?
Yeah, I mean.
So that was a no school day, so there were no parents dropping off kids. There were no kids. Did you actually stop at the new stops that they said that they're going to have you picking kids up at?
Those are not returned.
Well, according to Julie Jackson's Instagram page, they have, but it hasn't been made publicly available. Are you going to make those available to us?
If they were determined, I'm sure they would, but.
Okay, so I have a kid at Churchill Junior High, we have a kid at Eastwood, they take the bus from Immigration Canyon. They start, the first pickup in the morning is at 6:10 a.m. That same kid does not get home until 4:10 a.m. For those of you who are mathematically challenged, that's 10 hours that they are away from their home for a 6.5-hour day. And there's no time for the turnaround right now. The current bus driver, she picks up those kids, she takes them to Churchill. Churchill waits for 40, those kids wait for 40 minutes before the school even opens so that she can have time to go back and pick up the elementary school kids and get them there on time. If you change the bus route to add even 10 minutes, you will be picking up kids before 5 a.m. On your simulated route, 5:30 a.m. Did you start your simulated route at 5 a.m.? You don't have to answer that, that's rhetorical. I know that because you said you haven't done the simulated routes. And after this situation is even worse. Skyline kids get out at 2:10 and they have to wait an hour and 10 minutes on the bus before the elementary school gets out, before they start taking them home. Now if you want to add more commute time and additional bus stops potentially, and I know you said, oh, we're going to have 2 buses. We're going to have 2 bus drivers. Well, we've been asking for another bus driver for 3 years, and the response we've gotten was, there's no one, we don't have enough bus drivers. So have you been disingenuous with this? Or are you expecting a miracle next year that you're suddenly going to get another bus driver? And you're still going to have bigger impacts on the immigration Canyon kids. And this is so...
10 seconds, I don't let somebody else go, you've done it for a long time.
As a district, you can consider the exposure to liability for not providing reasonable access to education, for exposing kids to the dangers of these long bus waits, the health concerns, the increased risk of bullying, and the civil rights issues implicated by this extremely long wait and transfer times to kids who have special needs. I don't think you need to close down Oak Ridge or Eastwood, that either one creates unsafe, but this one, the hazardous transportation issue, is not fixable. It's not something you can correct. That's a hardship that only applies to Oak Ridge, and it's unfair. It's unfair to the immigration families that you are going to cause a mass exodus from the district. You already heard from Kim, who told you she would be leaving, I'll be leaving too, and you're going to see all the immigration parents leave. You are causing
Immigration, we took our kids as Indian House, it's a great school, way easier to get to. Okay, a few quick, easy questions.
We just got reached our time limit, so please be brief for everyone.
They're going to, we're not going to ask you to calculate 5% of 26,732. Follow?
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said, I'm not going to ask you to calculate 5% of 26,732. But I think you know where I'm going with that number. Quick question, who is Luke Allen?
Look out for what's in the communications department
Yes.
for Grants Thursday.
And he was quoted in the Tribune today saying that the decision to potentially close Morningside is due to its current in-house programs. Or that was their conclusion after speaking to him. He was quoted as saying it's 3 unique programs that are almost like 3 small schools within the school. So, who is he? Does he represent either the district? He's a spokesperson for the Granite School District according to the Tribune. Or does he represent the PAC?
Luke is part of the PAC. He's a district representative, or excuse me, spokesperson, one of. And he's saying, he's correcting me, he said that part of the reason they could close is those 3 separate programs there.
The Tribune reports largely due to.
I don't know what the Tribune, what the exact quote was. I've read a lot of things that aren't accurate, but I'll speak to it. It goes back to the table that we had a few minutes ago. And it shows the number of boundary students there. And then look at the staffing, where you have a split class on one side, and every other grade is one tradition.
We all know the split class is circumstantial, so that's not supported by data. That's not a per grade issue. That's a totally circumstantial issue. So let's take that.
It's supported by data that there's a split class.
There is
one class, traditional class.
There is a split class, but it's circumstantial because people are leaving because of this study. And people are coming in to Morningside in the upper years because their siblings are coming to Morningside. So it is not a Morningside population issue. Let's just be clear.
So inbound student Morningside population issue and the FCI and all those things that we have on the slide. It's like I said, it's not one thing, it's a combination of those.
Right, so you mentioned the FCI. That's the only reason you've given us for why Morningside traditional and ALC would be moving. And yet the school building is not closing or keeping the French DLI. So the FCI should not, it has zero bearing on your decision. So tell us more, or where is the data to support that it is largely due to its current in-house programs? Because of all the parents I've heard too, I've been happy with the fact that their kids can be in multiple programs. I live in the Morningside district, and my kids in ALC. In fact, we're in that little kind of weird part that's not going to talk about it, but
sorry. I come back to this.
yes, but we know that it's not a population issue. You keep saying it's a population issue because
It's
the same thing
before. Not population of the enrollment, not the total enrollment of the school. But like I said, we're looking at the long-term enrollment health of the school. That is based on inbound population, not programs. Not programs, because programs do move. You know that. They occasionally move. So if both these programs do move, then what do we have in inbound population?
Okay, we disagree.
Yes.
Can you speak to why the in-house programs are the factor? What did you hear from parents? Because as far as I can tell, parents have been happy.
Our first responsibility ALC is important, ELI is very important, we want these programs. But our first responsibility has to be to the traditional school student. And that is the thing that is suffering the most of the school. That's a fact.
Where is the data?
We want
It's
to-
not a fact unless you show us the data, so where are the data?
Where's the data for what?
Where are the data? Data is plural. Where are the data to support
Thank you for expressing my perspective.
class is suffering?
It's suffering because we know that we said over and over, our goal is to have 3 traditional classes per grade level. The split grade level classrooms, you can see the ups and downs, the split grade level, the highs and lows. We can look at, you can see the same thing at East Oak Ridge. It's suffering. With only 1 teacher per grade level, we need 3 minimum per grade level traditional classes.
The test scores at Morningside are like Eastwood's test scores. We're
I
supporting.
think people underestimate, we believe that, for instance, at Eastwood Ridge and here, that they are very good. We think they could be better with more opportunities and resources.
Okay, that could be, I don't think we would request that you send us some data to support your decision to choose Morningside, because as far as I can tell, it looks arbitrary. The FCI does not matter. That's not a factor. You can't use that as a reason. So if Luke Allen is correct that the reason the PAC is proposing to split Morningside families apart into 3 different schools is because of the programs, then you need to tell us why that is. And not just because we try to have 3 classes per grade. So we'll just look over.
Okay, we gotta give other folks a chance here.
I have 2 other good questions for you. Actually, 3, but they're really fast. Can we go back to the projected enrollment? So this is the same slide that you showed before the decision to not move ALC. The total number of kids in that fall 2025 enrollment is 4,120. The total number in the projected enrollment is 4,185. So that's a gain of 65 kids. There are a number of kids, I don't remember how many, that are moving from Drake's to Cottonwood Elementary. And these numbers, I'm assuming, don't account for the 144 kids in ALC, which were slated to move to Woodstock. So that's over 200 kids that you are expecting to be added to Area 5. Where are they coming from?
Again, new program ID. When?
A new program in in the fall of next year?
Yeah, it starts at Churchill and goes to the elementary.
These are elementary numbers, so where's 200,
Let me finish.
300 kids coming from?
When you move the ALC, could some choose not to follow? Yes. We also pick up others because it's closer to their proximity. And hopefully you get from out of bound with, for instance, ELI, you have to pick up some from out of bound. So yeah, we hope to attract more.
So from Butler?
I have no idea where they're from.
Okay,
Specific schools.
right. Hopefully it doesn't make data. Yeah.
Okay.
So where did 300 kids come from that make that number? Okay, you can't answer the question, so I have 2 more questions, which I guess.
I've tried to answer, you still agree with them, but
But you just told us that you don't know where
if you want to stay after, I'll be glad.
I have 2 yes or no questions.
I'm gonna go over here.
Is Woodstock within the Area 5 boundary? I'd like her to finish.
Okay, that's your turn, though. If you lose it. I'll stand, but I'll just understand. I'm trying to be fair, but yeah. Okay. Okay.
Is Woodstock within the Area 5 boundary?
So
Is Woodstock within the Area 5 boundary?
if you look at the map,
No, it's yes or no, don't stall.
No.
This is her time, do not stall.
I'm not going to support
Do not stall.
rules. These aren't your rules.
No, they're state law, as a matter of fact. So is it within the boundary or not?
Okay, So, this is not a perfect law, we're not going to do yes or no. So, it's not a yes or no. We state at the beginning means, that's not the answer. We state at the beginning means that we often have issues on the periphery.
Listen.
This is one of those.
Okay, no.
That's the answer.
Is Wilson within the area 5 boundary?
Part of Wilson is,
That's
part
right.
of it now. Again, the same answer, same answer.
Right now. Part of the area 5 boundary.
Here we're going with it, but
Yeah, you know where.
that's an entrapment, and I'm not gonna answer it that way, because it's not true.
The answer is no. It's a yes or no question. It's not my government. It's not.
Look at other studies where the same thing has been done. It's common. You have to draw a line somewhere. If we don't have a line, then the study is about the entire district. There are dominoes that fall, and we can't always anticipate those. So at the beginning, we say, this is the plan. It can go beyond that. If it does, we notify those schools and start addressing those. Okay?
All right, I guess it's my turn then. Thank you for your time. You guys have a really tough decision, and I hope you'll make the right decision. I'd like to pull up the update to the original ALC recommendation slide and just quote what it says. If you could pull that slide up that was presented tonight. Let me just read the first sentence over. There it is. So it says the board and district would like to study these programs further. So specifically in regards to the ALC program, including the potential of expanding and enhancing the services we provide to our enhanced learners. So if I can read this right, it might sound that we're going to be maybe expanding those programs, maybe increasing the number of seats, increasing the number of classrooms. Is that correct in inferring that from the sentence?
I think what they're saying is the potential is going to be studied. How long that study lasts, when it starts, I don't know that for sure. That will be up to the curriculum department. So I think anything is possible, but there's no guarantees. It says potential.
So if you're going to study these programs further, I'd urge you to pause on closing these programs until you really know what that looks like. You know, displacing children and studying at the same time and displacing them again is really hard. And so also to teachers, because right now they need to feel just as much at home as our students do, and it's been very stressful for them to think of this process of reapplying. Again, is that something that would have to happen? They would have to be reapplied and then reconsider? Is that true?
I'll have to check with HR. That is not my wheelhouse, and so I'll have to get back to you.
Because I urge that it's different for them, because they have built this program over the last 20 years, giving our heart so and there's a special part of it. So, yeah, I urge that you put pause to these programs until you really know what that means.
Okay, thanks.
I'm a 6-year-old right now learning side of the DLI program. And first of all, I know things have gotten a little emotional, high conflict maybe, but I just want to say everybody here really loves their school. So that's a good problem to have, because we might be knocking on your door with other problems if we were mad about closing them. Second of all, for Morningside, I'm just going to address my comments just to Morningside. I think the PAC should really be focused on minimizing the impact to kids at Morningside. And what I want to say about that is impact, but the impact being we should minimize the number of moves students at Morningside have to make. Because when kids move schools, there's lots of research to show they have negative impacts on achievement, graduation rates, and it also has a negative impact on the quality of the receiving school. So I think first and foremost, when we look at Morningside, we should focus on making sure those kids aren't moving multiple times. For the DLI specifically, as a parent of a kid on our program, it makes me incredibly nervous that there's no feasibility study for that as a French magnet program. It also makes me really unclear what resources will be left in the school, such as reading aids or special education resources for parents there. And without this information now, we don't even have a full 90 days to give an adequate notice and comment period. And I think it's just so important for our kiddos. We don't want Morningside to become another, closure in a year down the road. And I also just want to say that I think this closure of Morningside goes really against what the state legislature and the governor have said about school choice. Morningside is the only school that allows kids and families to have meaningful choice so they don't have to decide to split their kids between 3 different schools.
Yeah.
And also, we already have families that have gone through multiple closures, some up to 3 times. I live in Mill Creek. I should have went to Mill Creek Elementary to have a Spanish DLI program, but it closed. I could not get into William Penn because it's too full. And now on my street alone, we have a wonderful street. My kiddo is friends with everybody there. They all go to different schools in different school districts on the same street. That is very hard as a parent to see. And so really, for kids in Morningside, please minimize that. If you're in Mill Creek, you've gone through this multiple times. So I would really encourage the PAC to pause and make sure that when it's looking at Morningside as a French DLI magnet, that it really has its ducks in a row. Because it goes back to the kiddos who are there, the teachers who are there, and honestly, it's just a wonderful community culture. I went to Morningside, I didn't really like it. I had a lot of hesitations about sending my kid over there, and it's a really, really wonderful, special school that gives a lot of choices to people. I would also say for folks here who are concerned, you can also email your legislators if you have concerns about the direction of the school district, and also the board. I would encourage everyone to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, coming to the stage, I have a unique position. I am a Eastwood alumni student, I'm a parent of an Eastwood child, and an immigration candidate. So I have a full broad set of concerns, but my biggest one was you said Eastwood could be better with more opportunities. So if this decision is truly about opportunity, is the plan to improve outcomes and opportunities and resources by stripping students of their gold STEM school, which can't be transferred to Oak Ridge? By closing a top 10 ranking school, top 3 in Granite.
So you're asking about STEM? Is STEM transferable?
No, it isn't.
I know, I'm just trying to.
You're saying
STEM is not transferable, therefore you could lose that opportunity.
gold STEM standard is not transferable.
Correct.
So by
That's a
talking
great
about
question.
better with more opportunities, that's
That's
perhaps
one
one of the
opportunity.
best.
That is one opportunity. I'll try to get an answer for you. For instance, years ago, we were told from the state that certain things weren't transferable, but that didn't account for school closures, Title I, and other funds. And we got some adjustments from the state, or approvals when it comes to a school closure to make certain those transferable. I don't know if those can qualify, but I'll follow up with that.
Great. So Granite has closed 6 schools in the last 10 years. Why has the district never conducted follow-up studies to measure the impact of these closures on key priorities such as enrollment, student outcomes, teacher retention, or family satisfaction?
Right. We've done, again, if you go to the benefits consolidation slides, I won't spend a lot of time, but as she's pulling this up, let me tell you what we have done and we're working on. If you're looking for absolute data, academic data that tells you the school closure, and just looking at academics, we started a couple of years ago trying to collect that data. One of the challenges, and this isn't me in my department, it's our student assessment department, and it's what they do, they're the data people. We have a lot of mobility in our district, and when a school closes, you have to first compare apples to apples, and that is, are those students still at that school? We found that in a lot of cases, they are not. Then you have to look at factors like that teacher. Did that student that is still at that school 2 or 3 years later have the same 25-year veteran star teacher or a brand new teacher? And and the data we work with through a lot of these factors. So it's a very difficult study. It quite frankly is. And I've talked to other districts around the country and they have the same issue. Now, having said that, because what we base a lot of this on is this, we do know we don't have split grade level classrooms. Okay, well, let me finish. Let me finish. I'll be glad to look at those. I'm not saying in every case. I'm saying when you combine, if I can rephrase, you're less likely. If you have a split grade level classroom in a school that's been combined with another number, I'm glad to talk to you after. Multiple choice. Again, we accomplished that. We know that's a big deal. Yes, we talk to parents. Our professional learning communities and collaboration increase, which is a big deal. It balances out class size, which is a big deal. All those things are important. The easier to maintain our community councils and PTAs and other parent organizations. We lose parents, they get burned out, and teachers, they get burned out that way. We keep those, we know that. We've seen that. Teacher workload and burnout, like I mentioned, more efficient use of resources, all of those inclusion opportunities for our SPED students. All those happen. We see that. If you're looking for absolute academic data, that's going to look different in every closure. It depends on how many students from the closure went to another school, how well they were already doing, what the mobility is there, many other factors. That's the best answer I have for you right now.
So my understanding of past closures from West Coast is that the school stayed open, only received enough students to enlarge class sizes, but not enough technology for additional teachers or resources. If this strategy is felt before, why would it suddenly succeed with Eastwood, especially given the out-of-district students that we're already bringing in, asking them to travel further?
A couple of years ago, Western Hills was closed. Those students, like you said, went to Silver Hills. It did increase the overall number. What happened in that situation was unique. A charter school opened just down the street. A lot of people chose to go to that school for let me finish. Chose to go to that school that year. And as we suspected, that would happen. What happened this year? We've increased that school back because we see this in charter schools a lot. They go and they come back. Grass is not always greener. So as anticipated, we assumed it would go down, and it is back up to where we wanted it to be. And there are 2, maybe 3 teachers this year. So yeah, first year, we see that. Like I mentioned, it can take 2-3 years average for these numbers to balance out, for the dust to settle, for everybody to get used to their new boundaries.
And 2 last quick questions. The slide that shows the map of immigration, that's the first time I, in all of these meetings, have seen immigration represented at all. So my question is, during this PAC study, was that map ever presented to the members of the PAC to properly represent how big this boundary is becoming?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to find where we used the map before. I don't remember if it was with community councils, if it was in PAC. The point I'm trying to make is...
I've looked at all of them. It was never used as a holiday, it was never used in Mill Creek, it was never used in immigration. So
I can tell you, it's not good. It was very, like the first time we used it, we looked at it like tonight and it's thought, visually, that's difficult. That's
but I think it's a broader aspect of how big this boundary is actually.
But you
can say Oak is centrally located, when you're just showing Eastwood and Oak Ridge, not.
If you look at the slide, it's I said on purpose, centrally located for most of the students.
That's just got added time. That hasn't happened. Those has not been there.
I'll look at it, I think it's there, but as I adjust my slides all the time, if somebody calls it out, I say reasonable, so let me adjust my word to make it more accurate. Okay, so I'll look.
Boundary with 2 kids. One has gone through the French school, and the other is currently in 2nd grade. I think it's been a great program. I highly recommend it, but not at the cost of losing an entire neighborhood school. I have little confidence that full French DLI school is a good source of resources. Have you shared how many applications you receive yearly for the program?
Do I know how many applications or have you shared that?
What's the interest? How do you gauge the interest for the program?
I'll have to check with my DLA staff. I don't know what their, how many applications they receive versus how many are accepted and so on.
And how many of those turn down an application when they get it? Because a lot of families put a lot of applications.
Sure. Again, I'll have to see if they have that data from you.
Do you know how many of them are out of district? Like how many you attract right now out of district?
Don't know.
Okay, so you could be getting kids from already in district coming to the program.
I know how many we have out of district currently in the program. Is that what you're asking?
No, so like how many, what are you getting? Like how many applications a year are you getting that you think that you can fill a full French DLI school?
So you're saying what makes us believe that we can make that a larger school? Again, if you add kindergarten and you add even 75 to 100, which we believe in talking to other area families outside of our district that have already expressed interest, we believe we can do that because we did that last year. French is not Spanish, I know that, but it is unique enough on this side.
Comparing the French DLI program to a Spanish DLI program,
Again,
the size is not.
I guess what we are comparing is, on the one hand, guys, I keep hearing and I've heard for a while that, hey, this should be creative, try to do some things that are out of the box, and we're trying to do that.
It doesn't sound like you explored though Eastwood's gold STEM program in attracting more students. It is a thriving school, and the three programs are not a detriment to it. I think years ago, people said that there was kind of like an othering of the traditional program, but I have never heard that in the 6 years that I've had children there.
We have, if you look at the mobility chart on Morningside, there are students that leave Morningside because of these struggles with the traditional school. So it works both ways. We attract some to Morningside and we lose some because of those challenges.
I think you should release more data on why you think a full French DLI program is like a good resource and how easy it's going to be to attract those teachers. Because every year, every summer, they're scrambling for one or two teachers. They have managed to hold on to maybe 75% of the teachers in the last maybe 8 years, it looks like, but they still struggle to have one French teacher per grade.
If they, and this is a general question, is if it didn't stay there as a standalone program, where would you recommend that it go?
Stay at Morningside. Why would you?
It's not working for everyone. It's working for some. It's not working for everyone. And traditional students.
There's 2 classes that are split classroom.
The rest of the grades are one teacher in that grade.
But you guys put the programs there. That's fits in the school. I don't understand. Like families are new, they have kids in multiple tracks. Like it's doing a lot to a lot of families to take it to close Morningside.
It affects families because we have a need that are doing 2 things, whether it's traditional DLI, DLC, and so on, for sure.
I'm also a Morningside parent, and I love our school. I would personally love to see it stay intact as is. I think it gives a lot of opportunity to a lot of families with diverse needs, and I would love to see that grow and be an example for other schools. That said, I'll leave that. I have just a few questions, concerns, comments that I would like to address, kind of knowing that that's how I ultimately feel. I have kids in French. Well, one who's now in junior high level, one in fourth grade, and who had one in first grade this next year. I'm curious if you do feel, like going through the concern, it's feasible to get another 5 to 7 French teachers at that school. I would love, not classes, teachers, because you do have to have an English and a French counterpart, so you have to ultimately
teachers are great or two teachers are great. There's no
Still
really
has to be this
in
content.
between, right? So do we feel that that is feasible to make that happen with the current visa situations, with the fact that on the French end, they don't hold positions for them to come over and teach for, 5-7 years like they used to? Is that doable? Have we looked into that at all?
Yes, I've seen in the news like a lot of people about the cost of visas in certain situations and the way that goes. Discussed it with a few people in the curriculum department. Do I have the perfect answer to that? Certainly not. I do know that in our state, more than most, we have so many second language speakers that we've been able to take advantage of that. Do we in a lot of cases prefer to have native speakers in that case? Yeah, that often works out better. Not always, but often works out better. Do we have visa issues across the board with Spanish and Chinese also? Yeah, that does happen. So certainly something that we'll try to get answers to, but we also know that these things change with political ends, and they can change quickly, and we're careful and slow to make those changes, because if we just don't do it now, then in a few months or next political cycle, that changes dramatically the other way, then perhaps we've lost an opportunity. So there's no perfect solution. We're aware.
Next, I guess, question, concern is with, I know, is it just Dos Mundos? You changed the name. To me, that makes sense because you had multiple programs coming together, you were creating a whole new school, and also a good portion of those kids are Spanish speakers, and I feel like that makes 100% sense. With Morningside specifically, would you need to change the name of the school?
We discussed it briefly. That's technically not in the purview of the PAC, but it just makes sense, right? To change it to brand it. That's part of the branding and marketing, is when people say, well, why does this school have a very French name and none of the others do? It's part of the branding, and that's the marketing folks we talk to. Now, that's all I know. I don't know what's going to happen beyond that.
Can I make a recommendation? I would say that if this is how this plays out, and Morningside does become a DLI-only school, they will need to rest heavily on the name of Morningside. Morningside has a very good reputation, and we do have people who come from out of state every year who are like, we heard this is where we're going to school, right? And being able to rely on that, I think, would be very important, because French is not Spanish. It is not the automatic first choice for people, so being able to rely on that name, I think, is important. Second, French isn't easy for anyone who doesn't speak it. I was doing Duolingo, and my kids looked at me like I was an idiot. But being able to spell a French name, speak a French name, for those who are not native speakers or have no connection to that, is difficult. And so being able to just even Google that name is a lot more difficult than a Spanish name, where you can usually get most of the way there, even if you have no connection with the Spanish language. So that's my recommendation here. I'll keep this real quick, but my understanding of this study is that we want to make enough of the right choices that we don't have to do this again.
Ideally.
Yeah. And I know with the DLI programs that there has been talks of it taking away from those traditional programs. If both of these things are true, then why are we leaving William Penn as it is and not addressing their DLI program? And it's not because I want to work part of their school or anything, but if that's the goal, is to, like, we see that DLI and traditional have content existing together, and this is also part of that study, why is that not being addressed?
William Penn got some discussion on that. I was looking at my notes to see what was different, but yeah, it's a large Spanish school, DLI school, and many more Spanish DLI students than traditional students. In some ways, it has some of the same challenges that exist at Morningside. The difference is that Morningside has two programs, and not just one that's competing with. And so But you also have to look at, do you put just a program in a newer school? And if that program doesn't succeed, then you're sitting there with a almost brand new school not being used. And so, all of those factors.
Has there been talk of combining a Spanish program and French program together to school this?
And we had conversations about, because it's difficult, quite frankly, they have to like in any school that doesn't already have close to those 500 or 3 teachers a grade level. That is the goal. So because of that, we looked at some options of, can we put 2 programs together, or even Spanish, because that's 400-ish, I could be wrong, 375 to 400 depending. Then you put another 250, and if you're still trying to grow those, you don't have room there, you don't have the capacity to do both. And so if we had a school that was 800 to 900 capacity, that we put 2, maybe even 3 in one place. There are a couple of locations around the country that have kind of a world language school, and they have multiple languages at one school, and that's their focus. And if we had that building, that capacity, we would look at it, but we don't in this case.
Can I make one?
Please.
Right. I just would like to recognize the fact that one of the things that's been so difficult with Morningside in the past, and makes it so special now, is the programs. When the programs came, I know it was very hard. And it was a lot of growing pains for a lot of years. Having programs in school is tricky because you are taking these 3 classes and you are making them 1. That said, Morningside has put in so much work to make these 3 programs 1 school. And I do feel like have spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours to make that a reality. And I would like to recognize that sending a program somewhere else is going to be hard. It is going to be harder, I think, than bringing other people in. Morningside has practiced in bringing people in and expecting them, and creating that one school feel. I think it is going to be easier on a community to bring kids in than to send these programs out and say, okay, start from square 0 and make this happen. So that's my comment there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. Thanks for taking the time to answer the questions. I, like other parents, sort of found a lot of concerns about viability of the English school. We've heard a lot of comparisons to the Spanish program that was created last year. I do feel like there are inherent differences between Spanish and
Admittedly, yes, there are.
we have a lot of Spanish-speaking families here in the area that are able to matriculate in upper grades, whereas a French school, you would expect those children to start kindergarten and matriculate all the way up. So that Spanish school is able to bring a lot more families easier than the French.
Yes, they can often enter it later upper grades.
I think they also are able to know from qualified educators who are like Spanish speakers. We probably have a larger pool of those educators compared to the French. From what I've heard, and answering other parents' questions, it sounds like there has not been any research done to investigate how many students are on the wait list and how many we can expect to come to the school if we were to open doors and expand this program. I also haven't heard any concern about our qualified educators who also speak French and what that ability is to expand the program. One question I have that we haven't answered so far is, of the students currently in the French language programs, how many have siblings in the advanced learning program or in the traditional program that is now forcing these families to make, various communities trying to make different bell schedules and forcing that in communities that follow.
I have those numbers, and I can try to post it on, I can mention them tomorrow, I'll bring them, I haven't written down, but yeah, we know how many families have all those combinations, AOC and DLI, AOC and traditional, and DLI, and all those combinations. We you have that information, so.
Yeah, I think we would all look forward to seeing that guide. I think it's important to recognize the impact that this change is making, because it's not just one program that you're saying they want to prepare their school. You're saying, let's spread out these kids to 4 different sections. Tails is going here, Punch is going here.
Absolutely acknowledge and know that if a change like this impacts where they're currently there together, then families are making difficult choices. You know, do I still maintain 2 different schools? Do we have to drop the program? Those are real choices.
I expect the IOD members to support the standalone school as opposed to saying, let's just hope that we're able to recruit students.
Right.
Because if we don't have that, I think that we need a necessary support for program at that school to maintain the enrollment, to keep the enrollment at 87% instead of dipping it down to 41%.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, which part, which how many families do both programs?
Hi, I'm kind of here representing the lower busing neighborhood of Driggs. Unfortunately, we haven't really been listened to very much. I grew up here in Holiday. I went to Lincoln, my husband went to Crestview. We love this area. We purposely bought our home within Olympus, Maryland, to be here. I've had 3 kids go to Driggs. We love our dragons. I understand everybody here loves their school. Sorry, I'm very ancient. But we feel like Driggs has somehow become a community that is torn apart. And horrible to close any school, but at least if Eastwood closes, they're moving together. They can move together. Our neighborhood is being told that we're moving to Conway, okay? First of all, I'm also a teacher. I teach in Murray District. Enrollment's down everywhere. Our school's gone from 3 teachers per grade down to 2 teachers per grade. I almost lost my job because of it. It's horrible. It's a horrible situation, so I don't envy this at all. But why our neighborhood is being told to go to a school that is 1.8 miles away, we're having to be bused in. Our kids already spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes on a bus, which I know is nothing compared to other schools, but it is a lot. And that's to go to Driggs, which is 1.4 miles away, where Crestview is 0.4 miles away. So one question I have is, was it even considered to move us to Crestview if we have to move? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so looked at, the Crestview didn't need the enrollment increase like Cottonwood did.
Right. So,
you're right, it's closer for sure.
But so we've been told as a neighborhood we're going to save Cottonwood. Well, our families in our neighborhood this has happened to our neighborhood how many times? At least, Holiday closed and our neighborhood got shifted to a new school. And several, we just have had, so when they were told then our neighborhood will not be touched again. Well, here we are touched again. You're going to move us to Cottonwood. What happens? This Cottonwood, I have nothing against Cottonwood. I don't know anything about Cottonwood, honestly. I'm trying to just wrap my mind around anything that's going on right now. But we, as a neighborhood, feel like we're being torn apart and being sent further away. In 2002, we closed from Holiday and told our neighborhood that we were not going to move. Now here we are moving again. What happens when Cottonwood doesn't thrive and you're moving our neighborhood again? It's just a constant shift. And why do we feel that our neighborhood can be moved around because we're technically a busing neighborhood? Again, we will never fill a part of Cottonwood community. We're far, far away from Cottonwood. I don't go south, to be honest. I don't go past the city. We can't walk there. With Driggs, yeah, it's which is hard enough as it is. But it is within walking distance. I'm not going to send my child down Holloway Boulevard, down Murray Holloway on walking. You're breaking apart an entire neighborhood right now because some friends are saying, well, we're going to permit back to Driggs. Some friends are saying, well, we're newer to the community, so maybe we'll go to Conwood. What is the answer here? We don't have an answer. Nobody does. I personally have a 4th grader and a 1st grader that if I permit one of them, I have to split them at some point, which is not fair to my own children. And we keep being told you have the option to permit, but we don't. I know that as an educator, we can't fulfill every permit. And you say, well, we'll start with the 4th grade group. Have you looked at the class sizes in the 4th grade group? My son has been number 33 his whole elementary career. We love Driggs, not the class sizes. But you can't allow all those permits. And already, I've heard that we're getting parents from other schools that are closing, that are possibly closing, already permitting the Driggs. So is that going to take our permit spots?
I don't know if Driggs has accepted any.
I don't know.
I don't think they have. I don't think Driggs has accepted any since August. They're going to want to apply.
Right.
My understanding is they have not accepted it for reason.
But they're just, I don't know that I have a true question other than I feel like our neighborhood has been torn apart. We haven't been listened to. Rob has asked lots of questions, hasn't been listened to. I know another parent said, were there other options put out there? Because the community was not told other options. We said they've been told this is the option. But why isn't it being considered to move the ALI program to Cottonwood to help save Cottonwood? Or why isn't it, we haven't heard that, and our community is being shifted. And to save Cottonwood is what we've been told over and over again. Cottonwood, honestly, since I was in elementary school, Cottonwood has been dying because those parents, those families in that community many of them go to private schools. And I can't even get into the financial aspect of it all because it frustrates me knowing that those families possibly, they're trying to keep their home values up, but that's a reason why you keep a school open. And it was they tried to close it back when we were closing Spring Lane, and the community came together, they kept it open. But it has not been a thriving school for 20 years. And Driggs is the way.
I say often from the beginning, there's no perfect solutions. There is not. What you said in the beginning, as a teacher, and I keep coming back to this, guys, is with birth rates down, we do not have the students we used to.
Right.
We're not going to for a while.
And I know Murray's going to be going through this in a few years
And
too.
every district is.
Yeah.
Even growing districts like Alpine are closing schools because of shifting populations. Jordan District.
Why are they not even considered closing Cottonwood?
Generally, again, we started with every school on the list, like I was starting to mention earlier. The short version is, we looked at, go to every school, we looked at Cottonwood, still, maybe not for some people, the curve appeal, because I've talked about this with people, that some people want in Cottonwood, but the FCI score is really good. Does it create? Let me finish. Are we aware that if we close a school on the edges of our district, it can have an outsized impact on that area? It's not the only reason, but yes, that can happen. It's on that top corner, but there's also another area to match it with, okay? But, there's no perfect. You can make a case, try to make a case almost anywhere, and you can say, look at their enrollment. And it's gone down, like a lot happened. those
So why
trade-offs.
is it that a neighborhood of 100 kids or less, because I know a lot of my neighbors permit to other schools out of boundary for languages, why is it that our neighborhood is being told to stay Cottonwood when possibly moving a program there? Or, I mean, we get told this full child program, and that's great, I want to teach the whole child, that's my whole goal in life. But it's not saving a school, and instead you're tearing apart the community. And for some reason, careers and millions are being torn into every direction. And even looking at your map today, you're taking a corner of our neighborhood, which, yeah, is apartments and things, but that's part of our neighborhood, and they're being kept in tricks. But I'm one street below them and being told to go somewhere else.
And it's a neighborhood whose brand has repeatedly broken laws.
Repeatedly.
And you have repeatedly like messed up our neighborhood, put it in different places that we always are attached to. And if Conway closes, even if it's 10 years, our neighborhood didn't have to yet. And how is 100 kids going to save the 76 fifth graders that are leaving?
Can you come over
That
here,
doesn't
and
match.
then
Doesn't
we're going to
make-
ask the question, and have you come up to the microphone, okay? Thank you. Very good.
Okay, I will be quick. I have just a couple of talking points in no particular order. I would like to start off by asking how many members of the board are still here tonight?
Just one.
Two, I said two. Okay, thank you. So, actually, three. Thank you for being here. Okay, great. So I am a traditional parent at Morningside. I have a son in third grade now. In his first grade year, he was in a class size of 11. In his second grade year, he was in a split classroom with first and second graders. I believe it started out around 19 or 20 and ended around 24. This year, he's in a class size of 27, with 3 of those students being added within the last 2.5 weeks. 2 of those students came from the French DLI program at our same school. So my question is, or my concern is, it's the lower grade enrollment at Morningside, first and second grade. I believe resources should be spent getting those grades filled first and being able to keep Morningside sustainable as it is with all of those programs. I have a son who graduated from Morningside, and there were a number of students who switched from ALC to traditional. One, because of an issue I'm not at liberty to discuss, moved from the traditional program to the ALC program. It's very nice and convenient to have those things available for those students. Another point is I've seen conflicting numbers on the number of students Morningside can actually have. I've seen that number as 600, and I've seen that number as 650. So
That's typical. If you heard me talk about capacities, I typically list elementary capacities in a range, anywhere from 50 to 100 range. And it
if we're
depends.
talking about percentages and how many students are there, 50 makes a difference.
It certainly can, yes.
Okay. My other question is, okay, I think most have been answered. One other thing is, has the city of Holiday or Mill Creek been asked what their plans are, how many building permits have been issued for multi-home units going up? High density is happening. It's happening in Holiday. It's happening in Mill Creek, and it's going to continue to happen. From a personal standpoint, we have a family lot that has just been zoned by Holiday City to build 4 units on that one lot. We're trying to acquire 2 more. That puts 12 additional homes on a 1-block street. Not meaning that that's not really the answer that I want, but that's something that can happen. So it might not be short term, but those are coming. Those kids that are born now that are coming will be in kindergarten in 5 years. And so I just think that we're prematurely deciding that Morningside is not sustainable and not enough research has been done.
Yeah, let me respond to that part. So research on residential growth, building permits, yes. We look at that, but we also, that's why we hired a consultant to do the same, to look at our data, do their own, challenge our data if need be, or confirm it. And they come out, and I go with them all the time to learn and drive, count building lots, talk to planning directors in municipalities to get all of that data. And that's what we make those decisions on. So in this area in particular, you'll see a lot of building, you'll see a lot of high density building. But we just don't get the student yield from that building that we used to. It just isn't there. So like I said earlier, the supposed turnover, and there is turnover, but when I say supposed, it's just not, it doesn't refill the way it used to. We're losing students to birth rate, fertility rate, whatever you want to call it, faster than we can replace. If interest rates go back down to 2% soon, maybe that'll have an impact. But that's also make skyrocket prices. I mean, there's variables. No, that's not the connection. If interest rates go down, my point was those are two different stats. But people, please, there are two different ways of looking at it. Okay. Anyway, but that's the answer. Is we're aware of those, and it still doesn't offset.
Okay, one last point here is that as a Morningside kindergarten, we had to enter a lottery to be accepted into the DLI program. Now, 6 years later, you want to move traditional students out and now bring in DLI students. So it feels a little bit of a slight that we weren't given the opportunity 5 or 6 years ago, so we might not be in this predicament.
Steve, first I want to thank you for spending your time. My name is Wes Asher. I spoke with you previously.
Yes,
one of the things I want to say is I have met with you on some of these prior boundary studies that negatively impacted our community. I've been vocal about that. I feel like I've done everything I possibly could, not only to yourself, Clark, and to the president of Granite School District Board, and continue to see these things happen. They negatively impact. The lady who just spoke and going on the side, answering the same is negatively impacting the community again. I met with you after the last meeting, and I said we have an opportunity to correct something that has hurt a community. And I said, is this an opportunity to correct a solution? Was our street met with both of you after that happened and occurred? I've done nothing besides looking forward to these maps and seeing a correction that could be made, and have yet to see that happen. Is it possible, or could you expound, or even meet with me after to explain why we can't correct these known issues that have occurred?
Yeah, I'll be glad to meet. I know what you're talking about. You and other folks are on a street that's
very small street, that it's hard to be heard. I mean, the community show.
Yeah, and we had the conversation when this started early on. Can we revisit? I remember right, my comment was, if we're going to revisit it, now's the time while we are in this. But it didn't raise to the level of impact of something that they wanted to change. But if you want to look at that specifically on that later, I realize that.
Absolutely, I'd love to do that, because when we ended the meeting for our street, one of the things we stood up and said, and we all agreed upon, is please stand up for us, please represent us, and please fight for us. We're a community that cares about our children. So thank you, and I look forward to meeting with you here shortly.
Thank you. Reach out to us. Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 points I'd like to make. One is elementary schools especially are a part of the community. And we've seen what COVID did to our students when they lost their community. Closing elementaries within a community takes that away, moving the kids to where resting them, or having them walk a mile and a half on streets that don't have sidewalks. Doesn't help that feeling of community, that feeling of belonging that children need and people need. And so that's something I think is very important. My other thought is correct me if I'm wrong, you said if we close the school, we keep it. We're not going to sell it, we're not going to give it to the highest bidder. We keep it, we maintain it, trying to see if the community changes. Is that correct?
That's correct. The only caveat I can ever make to that is, none of us can speak to future boards, right? But I can say that we haven't sold the property in over 10 years, and we've closed 10 schools in that time, and we've kept all of those. And so I think that shows with pretty good confidence and reliability that, yes, that's our plan.
Okay, so I'm a little confused, because if you close a school and you keep it, you're still maintaining it, you're paying a heating bill, you're watering the grass, you're having it maintained, and we all know insurance is more expensive on empty structures than it is on full structures. Why don't you keep all of the schools open, and like you talked about, perhaps we'll find a service that can fill in the school while we're maintaining it? Why don't you do that with a partial school program, bring in Head Start programs, bring in, you know better than I do what would match with the elementary school. So keep all the schools open, the community stays together, and you don't have all of these empty costs going.
Yeah, again, when a school is closed, that is why most of our properties are currently under a lease agreement. And what that allows us to do is to not keep incurring those costs of maintaining the property. That's part of the lease agreement, is the new lease, the people, organization that is using that property maintains the property inside and out. That takes it off of our books to maintain, yet we own the property. So if we are needed again, we can. In the end, there just aren't enough organizations. You mentioned Head Start. There's a lot of great organizations, but quite frankly, when they call us, they want the building for free or almost nothing, and they still want us to maintain it and all those things, which doesn't make good fiscal sense, right? How do we not close schools? I don't know. Again, I ask the question all the time is, at what point, what is the magic number that a school gets down to where a community would feel okay about closing it? And we've stated what we believe on that, and it kind of comes down to what teachers are ready. But that's the challenge. When you don't have the number of students, what do? We end up having to have some closures.
Well, if you're rescuing the students, you're not saving money on teachers. They need a teacher at the school to go bus to, or whatever.
If we're busing students,
The students need teachers and whatever.
yes, there's some cost, obviously, if there's more busing, but it's a student-teacher ratio. So, again, you remove, if you close a building, of course, if the remaining students go to another school. So, you still maintain the number of teachers necessary, and we keep that economy of scale and try to make those other schools healthier. That's really what this comes down to. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Steve. So good to see you again after we met at morning site. I'm going to ask two questions. The second one will just be the same questions I asked you before, which I haven't answered. So I was looking at your LinkedIn because I was trying to figure out more your LinkedIn account. I was trying to learn more about after we met last time. So, in the corporate world, we talk a lot about our key performance indicators or KPIs. And so I was trying to figure out what are your KPIs for your job? What are your incentives? What motivates you? In your write-up, you say, my current position as Director of Planning and Boundaries for Granite School District, I have had the unique and challenging responsibility to lead our district through a period of declining student enrollment. In this high-stakes position, I have worked closely with the Granite District Board of Education, Superintendency, municipal leaders, and other key stakeholders. Together, we have navigated the closure of 6 is being considered?
It's I read it, wow, that's not
Like you're open. I was just wondering, so when I look through your LinkedIn, the one metric you seem to really focus on is the number of schools you close, right? We all use LinkedIn as a way to promote ourselves to others. Is that what you consider to be your key performance indicator for your role, is the closure of schools?
You know, like a lot of people on LinkedIn, I rarely use it, I created it one day. There were some other districts that started calling me, and because they do, we've gone through the process many times. And so at that point, I created LinkedIn. Is that the goal, or is that something I'm proud of?
It's the only thing you call it here, yes, measurable.
But when you go through the point that, you know, the districts who do this, is we've gone through a process, and I'm trying to help other districts get through that process, if necessary. So I think, don't read in, I'm not celebrating the fact that we've had to do it, but it's necessary. And for most districts, it's necessary. And I'm saying, if you want to talk, that's some of my experience, like anyone does on LinkedIn or other social media.
So, Connie, Nicole, and Clark, I think you guys are here, I've never met you. But Julie was at the meeting that we last had this conversation, so I just will go back on the record. So there was a message sent to ALC families, East and West, is that accurate, on September 19th?
To ALC families, sorry?
The email sent on September 19th, was it to East and West families? Is it Granite School District, or was it just East?
I don't know, I don't know, I'll find out. I don't know.
I just want to say I don't know so much. It's the last one you said I don't know, and I said maybe you should know the data that supports the decisions that you're representing. And I will just say that again for all of us to do.
If you expect me to be omniscient about every aspect of the district and every program, that's not possible for no one. It's impossible. Now, even after 30 years in the district, I say I don't know often. Please let me look up and get back to you. It's been a whirlwind a couple of weeks especially, and I've had lots of conversations, lots of emails, lots of preparation trying to be ready for this. But understand, and this is okay, it's natural, but you guys, as it should be, each one of you kind of get to crowdsource questions, so you can come at me with literally hundreds of questions, hundreds of different pieces of nuance in those questions. And I'm trying to answer those the best I can, but there's no way I will know those without some feedback and time to look into it. And it's okay if I say, I haven't thought about that way before. Guys, that's why we're here. That's what the process is to get feedback. Now, you hear me and see me, and I think it's okay to say, advocating or defending these recommendations, because that's what we did in the past, and these are still our recommendations. But just like with the LC, and maybe with some of these, if there's enough good feedback where the PAC or the board says, hey, that was your recommendation, but we see it differently when it comes time to make a decision. That's what we're doing. We're giving feedback.
Yeah, and I think a very large organization that does that in science, all I would say is that when I am called to answer questions for our distributors in our field, it is expected that as a head of the organization, I'm able to speak eloquently to at least a first level of why. Maybe not a 5-why analysis, but it is fairly shocking that you don't seem to be able to do that. So I believe it's uninterested in your response. So earlier, the French human person that was here made a comment about the renaming of the school, and actually said it was not within the purview of the PAC to rename the school, which I thought was humorous. Was it within the purview of the PAC to do program analysis?
Yes.
So Julie did not say that when we asked her that question. It was a population analysis. You performed and are now backtracking on an ALC programmatic analysis.
If you look back over the history of our previous population analysis studies, last year was a large one. We had a lot of program changes there. It just makes sense to us, as if we're making changes, recommending changes, closures, and boundary adjustments. We should, and almost need to, look at the programs that are there. They are part of the analysis.
I totally agree with you. So, given that, I will ask the same questions we've asked before. I will re-ask the question about who said that 5% is the target percentage of students that should be in ALC. I asked for clarification if that was top 5% of PROGAT testing or if that was top 5% of test per boundary school test. It was not the data provided to us. So I will again ask a normalized data distribution per population for within boundary school. What are the test scores? You can do it over a 3-year, that's fine if you're longitudinal. The data that was provided to us was not that. We're talking about that. The second is the target for ALC top 5% of test takers or top 5% of PROGAT scores. Those are very different. So for everyone who wasn't at our last meeting, the question is, when they look at test scores, right now the way it's being done is in theory they're saying they want the top 5% from each testing group. In some schools, in some areas, that can mean you can get an ALC at a 90% standardized test score. In some places, it could be 98, because you don't expect an even distribution over a district this size in terms of raw scores. So we asked for that data, we did not get it. What are the total number of ALC students and how many classrooms per grade do you want in school? You've said 2 sometimes, but we don't have an answer to that. We asked for data to have the 75-25 split, and he said, so they said that because the east side and west side has a 25-75 split in terms of population, ALC should also be split as such, which then implies that we're doing a 5% cutoff by test score, not by normalized score. We've asked for that data, and we haven't received it. And then the other really interesting thing is we did this email on the 19th, and the biggest issue I had with this is one, only actually include 4 of the ALC centers, not 5. So West Current is not on there, which is interesting. I don't know why. There's no normalization to the data, so it says the top percentage of testers, but what it doesn't tell you, did like 10 kids out of the class take it, or like 1,000. So there's no way to look at the data. And the really annoying part that I hope was just an oversight, not an intentional, inflammatory approach, given what we heard at the last meeting, is the way it's split up. They try to make it very clear that the east side students actually have a lower test score, but it's not what the data says, it's just the way they made the data look. Then the west side, after having told us at the last meeting, that the east side parents and the west side parents are interviewed. So we will again request from ALC across GSE that we want an east and west parent meeting. We want to make sure that they're aware that they're collaborating with the west side parents to bring them in. Because I'm really hoping this was accidental and not intentionally trying to make a base. So the email only went to the Woodstock. Oh, that's great. So when we have our district-wide ALC meeting that the district has agreed to set up, right? We'll go through all of the data with all of the parents together. Because the east and west side parents are not going to be divided on this. Like, we're all here to support our children.
Guys, thank you. This has been great feedback, enlightening, and I still don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't know waiting. I just thought you were sitting there. I didn't realize we were in line.
No, just.
Apologize. It's good. That's what the study is going to be about.
Okay, just have a couple short questions. Is there an option to move the ALC students to Cottonwood? Instead of displacing 242 kids, you can just place the 142 of the ALC.
I'm going to have to, I don't know yet.
Okay.
I know she loves that answer, but I will tell you what I suspect so far.
Yeah.
If you look at the map, Ian, are you still here? Can you just go to the map and look at the main Area 5 map? We're going to meet on this several times internally over the next couple of weeks to try to get this answer where the ALC up. If you looked at almost there, now it's going to record and say everything else. Almost Could it go from one side to the other? Of course, the spot is the one that's not on the boundary, is in this area, right? Geographically, I think that would be difficult to have, if we're going to maintain two programs, to have a cottonwood and Woodstock. I think geographically it makes more sense to keep something central to the north end. We haven't gotten to the details yet. I don't know, again, but that's my first take looking at that area.
I guess I will expand on it. Is there a world where the morning section on the south side of Upland Terrace goes to Upland Terrace? They have capacity to take them. Drake's boundaries can stay the same, making it
This area?
no, south of Upland Terrace, yes. Can that area go to Upland Terrace? Upland Terrace has the capacity for it. Can Drake stay the same boundaries? Not having it be an extreme split feeder, which yes, it is a split feeder currently, probably about 5%, 25%. That is easily fixable if you run the boundary down 27. Move the AIC program to Cottonwood, so instead of taking the 100 students from Drake's, we take the 142 students from the ALC program, help boost their population, in turn, save one school from becoming a split feeder, save 100 kids from having to move. Is that a viable option?
We're still taking feedback. I encourage you to write a little narrative on your thoughts there.
Or is the geographic location more important than these other options?
You know, we've talked about trying to maintain our junior high feeders. We'll have to look at that.
Exactly, which would make sense moving the morning side to Upland to keep them in the skyline network, correct?
Is everybody feel good about the walking route? The safe walking right there? And what? I mean, what the point I'm making is there's multiple answers here. And even though sometimes with your solution, it may be a great solution. I don't know yet, we'll look at it. But it's not just as simple as drawing boundary lines and saying those numbers were a guide. It goes back to what we've been hearing a lot tonight, is all those other factors. How does it affect secondary feeders? How are walking routes affected? How does it affect transportation? Other issues? But send it in.
Okay, thank you. I thank you for your time today, for staying so late, and to the board members for your love as well. I'd just like to say, on behalf of Eastwood, I'm an Eastwood parent. I live in the Eastwood district right next to the school, and I reviewed the board meeting from February about going forward with the PAC study. I heard some of the board members express concerns about the prior PAC study, the impacts that it had on those students in schools, and that some of them were, asking about pausing the PAC study. Board member Jackson stepped in and kind of said, well, we got unanimous feedback from the principals in my precinct, she's our representative, and teachers that, feeling was that this had to go forward today for some of the reasons that I think you outlined. I saw a number of Eastwood teachers here, some of them left, sorry, I was speaking very late, but we were later informed as parents that the Eastwood teachers, so if you looked at the thing from February, you can see the writing on the wall. Eastwood and Oak Ridge are the two smallest schools, they have the worst FCI schools. I think anybody here can tell you that these schools go on the chopping block. But nobody, and so they're the smallest schools, yet they're the most successful, two of the most successful schools. And there was feedback from Oak Ridge teachers maybe that they're struggling, they're telling us our students are struggling, our teachers are struggling. I heard from Eastwood teachers that was, nobody asked them, are they struggling? My kid is in a split level classroom now, he's not, I don't think he's struggling that much right now. And what you're telling me is, you're telling me that he's going to gain from going to a bigger school with
more teachers per grade. He's at an excellent school, he's not struggling, and he's gonna lose the community of our neighborhood, all of his friends, the many Eastwood families that they're gonna spread out all over the place. They're not all gonna go to Eastwood. We've heard that multiple times. I've heard that too. So you're being a part of the community, and what is the benefit? And I'm in medicine, I'm a pediatrician. We always have to, when we make recommendations, we try to use evidence-based data, right? And again, I haven't heard the evidence, and you said yourself it's hard to make these studies happen, but what is the evidence that we are, again, other people said this, affecting the outcomes? Like, what are we gaining here? You have put up lots of data about classroom sizes, and I agree that's absolutely important, but that's not the only thing that outcomes can be about. Like, that's one measure, and that's the only measure that I see up here. I'm not seeing any measures of like how successful these schools that are being closed are. So my hope is that we take a step back. If you could provide, I think it's doable to do some survey data from parents to see matriculation data from the schools that you have closed, which of those schools have gone out of boundary, what shuffling has happened. Maybe academics is a little bit harder to gauge, but I think you can get teacher data. You haven't shown any of that. Faculty data, parent feedback data, student data, and take a pause and recognize what the outcome, what are we trying to accomplish here. And then there's cost. I know that there's many factors that go into this, but I don't see really that much strong data about the cost savings here either. So I just want to recognize that our school, who was on the chopping block this whole time, our community of faculty were not engaged when this recommendation went forward, and we're giving feedback now, but it seems too little too late.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. The board members that stayed, were there two? And Steve? How many PAC committee members were here? Can they stand? One? You're the winner. Two. That's helpful. I think that I know people are upset about your I don't knows, and if you brought the traveling PAC committee, you probably have a lot of immediate answers, which would be super helpful. So that's a recommendation I have. And then a question, well, this question would be negligent if you followed through with the plan from 2 speakers ago, with the south side of the morning side moving to Upland Terrace, and actually, that would be a safer walking route, from what I can tell just off the top of my head, than the 2 major streets from the West Driggs community proposed to move to Conwood. Much safer. And actually, along those lines, a question I do have you contacted Holiday City about getting the financial approval for all of the extra crossing guards and stuff? Because my experience with them is laborious and unsuccessful in those arenas.
I've spoken at 2 Holiday City and 2 Mill Creek City Council meetings. I've spoken to several individual council persons about a range of issues, about crossing guards and student safety and sidewalks, those sorts of things.
It's all approved?
But no, I'm not saying it's approved. Okay. I'm saying I've spoken to them. And I would say on their behalf, they have been more than gracious and more than willing to meet and talk. And to be as honest as I can, they have some of the same challenges we have, and we'd love to do that. They see the need for it, but they're like us. We need money to make all those improvements happen. Now, crossing guards, understand, come not from the city, but from the police department.
Right, the city has to approve the funding.
Yeah, now, it depends on if it's unified or if it's Holiday City or wherever the police department comes from.
Yeah.
But if it's all simply painting and making crossing lines on the street, or hog light, or red light, or all the other improvements.
There's all kinds of scenarios. I'm just saying when it comes down to a vote, you might be very hard pressed. But my other question, if you can just logically clear the mixed messages that the proposed excommunicated Drake's students have. The mixed messages are regarding, we're getting one message saying, it's open enrollment, we want you to stay, you're part of our community, you've been here for, you've had kids here for 14 years, of course you're staying with Drake's, you have a fourth grader, you have a second grader, why would you be here, of course. On the other side, we have really strong messaging saying, well, this is going to be such a massive boundary change, massive project. We need people to follow the boundary recommendations. So can you clear that up?
Still am hopeful and want people to be able to go where they want to go. I can't magically, between now and next year, create a bigger building or more capacity than what we have.
So on the slide, can you bring up the slide that shows the Driggs permit? Yeah, so
just the Driggs
like prioritization. Yeah. So it says like 4th grade students have the priority and the lower.
It's near the end of the priority slides.
Okay, so actually I was a little shocked to see that current Morningside students attending on open enrollment have some place in the priority. Can you clarify that?
Open enrollment is hard, right? Because you're coming from out of the boundary, whether either out of the boundary or out of the district. Yet we'll have some people that have been attending Driggs. Let's say, for instance, you've been in Driggs kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade, maybe 3rd grade. And now, because of the boundary change, we're going to tell you that you're not officially part of the boundary, so good luck. We're trying to recognize that.
So is it in that order? Driggs student first, and then like Morningside students is down here, or is it like all equal playing field? Because I know like the enrollment dashboard right now, is that going to be changing? Is that going to be revamped and redigitized? Because right now it's first come, first serve. Is that staying?
What part?
First come, first serve. It's like a first come, first serve basis right now.
It's a great question. So it's typically, you're right, it's typically a first come, first serve in that window. I believe it's November 15th to February 6th. Okay. I'm encouraging everyone that wants to apply.
Is that priority over either of these, or that's a last priority to these?
The priorities, we have the ability as a district to make those priorities over and above just who's first. If you show up at 7 a.m. on November 15th, that does not necessarily give you priority over a student that's, like I said, they're current 4th grade.
Okay, and then the current ruling, or I don't know if it's a process or a procedure as far as the district is concerned, but the current ruling is like once you have a family accepted to open enrollment, your entire family stays on open enrollment forever.
We make every effort to keep families together in that case with open enrollment, just like with ALC and DLI families that we've had. I can never guarantee there are always exceptions to things, but my experience is 90–95% of those are able to remain together.
Okay, and last question, what's the data on current Morningside students attending on open enrollment? How many would that be transferred into Driggs? What's that number?
It's on the website, but I can look it up. I mean, so how many students attend Morningside on open enrollment? Right?
The current Morningside open enrollment students.
Now, there are quite a few. If you go to our website and look at the very bottom, you scroll down and you see all of them, you see each school listed. You go to Morningside, and Morningside, I think, has 3 different ones. We have one for the boundary students, one for ALC, and one for Morningside. That's where it gets difficult and tricky because you have to kind of tease out, all right, how many are in ALC? But of those in ALC, how many of them live in the boundary? Same thing.
So it's broken down.
Then how many are siblings of those? And so, but we'll give you a whole number. These are the students in the boundary, and this is everyone else is coming from out of the boundary, and not only that, they'll tell you where they're coming from, which school in the district, or if it's out of the district, because it's out of the district and not specifically which district.
Okay, that answers that. Thank you.
Thank you.